Europe's rail. Of course, the rail joint undertaking has been in existence now for about 8 years in its previous guise as Shifter Rail. But one of the innovations when we relaunched the JU as Europe's rail was to include the General Assembly. And the General Assembly is meant to be everybody's chance, the whole of the rail and the research community, and in particular, all of those partners who are active in the JU without necessarily being full members of it. It is all of your opportunity to come together to learn about the achievements of the JU, in particular, what has happened since the last General Assembly a year ago. To understand, and perhaps more importantly, also to help us understand how the work that has been done by the JU can be taken over and used in your day-to-day businesses. But it's also, of course, an opportunity to discuss what is planned for the future, to help us, again, establish the right programs for the future, and, of course, to advertise what is coming in the more immediate future in the work programme next year. Of course, as relaunched, the joint undertaking was still very much focused on delivering the system's glue at the heart of the European railway system, clearly of making the rail system more efficient, more affordable, more attractive, and therefore better able to play the leading role we expect it to in delivering the European green and digital transition. Of course, a huge challenge across all of industry, a particular challenge for the transport industries, given their high dependence on fossil fuels, etc. For rail, the issue has never been decarbonising per se. Of course, there are things we do need to decarbonise, but the issue has much more been making rail attractive and efficient so that we can leverage better its already strong environmental and climate characteristics. Now, in the work that we will be discussing over the next 2 days, this afternoon and tomorrow morning, of course, we're showing how Europe's rail has built on the achievements of Shifter Rail, but also the new things that we're doing in Europe's rail. And of course, Europe's rail started out with a much stronger focus on achieving system transition, starting from the premise that, of course, the European rail system is very complex. It's fragmented geographically amongst the national infrastructure managers and, to a large extent, railway undertakings, which are still nationally based. But it's also technologically fragmented because of the different systems that have been adopted at different points in the past by different parts of the railway, and by the fact that it is now separated for good market reasons into railway undertakings and infrastructure managers. But if we are to transform the railway system, if we're to deliver a genuine single European railway system, building on all of the modern technologies, particularly digital and automation technologies that are now available, we have to overcome that fragmentation to really deliver a single railway so that we eventually, and we're certainly far from there yet, but that eventually we have a railway where you can actually buy a locomotive or a coach or well, maybe we are there with freight wagons, but you can buy railway vehicles that can genuinely run across most of the European railway system without further difficulties, so that we give rail the flexibility that our colleagues in aviation or on the roads have long enjoyed. So that meant, of course, putting a lot of effort into the elements that have to be common across the railway system, into digitalisation, into traffic management, into signalling and the related technologies, but also, of course, into the delivery of the low-cost railway, which is vital if we want to keep our more rural or lower traffic lines in operation. It means a big focus on freight and the digital coupling in particular. And it does mean some focus as well on decarbonisation, on bringing battery or hydrogen trains into the rail mix. So many things happening under those umbrellas, and the objective of this afternoon is, as I say, to explain how we are delivering on those, how the master plan that we set up to give the direction to the new joint undertaking is being delivered. Now, as I said, we have a mix of participants, quite a lot of participants now in the room here in Brussels, including a lot of representatives of the founder members, but I think some others as well. So we're very glad to see you here in person. Obviously, if you're here in the room and you want to take the floor, then please raise your, like you don't have name badges anymore, so well, please wave your hand and I will try and call you. For those of you online, it's easiest if you all ask for the floor in the same way rather than sort of some people raising their hands, some people putting things in the chat. So I would ask, in fact, if you want to take the floor, indicate that in the chat function in Teams. And of course, if you've got a particular question, then put that in Teams as well. And I will try and make sure that we get to you from that. A couple of my colleagues are keeping an eye on the chat. So between us, we should make sure you're introduced. So with that, as I say, I think this is an important innovation because it does allow us to share, both to tell you, but also to hear back from you about the work that's ongoing in the JU. And of course, very importantly, to ensure that we understand what we need to do to help you actually pick up and rapidly deploy that work, because although this is a research joint undertaking, it's very much practical and applied research with the objective of actually getting that technology into the system. So we need your feedback on how we're doing and how more we can help you. But with all that said, I will now pass the floor to Giorgio Travaini, who's the director here at the moment, so that he can take you through the activities and the achievements of the JU since 2023 and what's planned for next year. So, Giorgio.
Thank you very much, Keir. We can then move the slides until the presentation of the objectives for Europe's rail. So if you go to the next, these are the agenda, but I think this has been circulated, so you know. Next. So you can see here our objectives for 2022-2023, just as a reminder of everyone what we have been building up since last year. So first of all is to implement and starting to obtain the last results from the technological demonstrators from the Shift to Rail program with the aim and objective to close it up in 2023. Secondly, we have been tasked and doing the launch of the first flagship project of this joint undertaking. And with this, we have closed and covered the activities, 4 flagship areas identified in the multi-annual work program that derives from the master plan up to 2026. So also this is a novelty of this program, with the possibility to have this multi-annual approach also on the program level. The third area of activities and objectives that we set to ourselves was to also kickstart in parallel new research activities for exploratory ideas that will create and set the basis for future also transformation of the railway system that will complement as well those flagship project activities. And as you know, as our new program has been configured and we have been also discussing last year, we have also a novelty with the system pillar. And the system pillar, we really launched up all the activities in last year, and this will really create the basis for the future work. In addition, in terms of governance, it's the first year where the System Pillar Steering Group actually formally existed, and also the Deployment Group, we have set the basis to set it up, and so that we can launch it as from next year. The European DAC Delivery Programme, you remember, it's something that we have been starting already under Shift to Rail, under the previous program. But our objective was really to consolidate its work now that we have a dedicated flagship project on it, flagship project 5, and also to ensure an enlargement of the community, because it's not just a matter of who is interested in doing research and innovation, but it's very much important to reflect with those actors that later on will have to deliver upon it. And we will have also today a dedicated presentation about it, so I will not spend more time on this. The last point, and it's also something important that we built up during last year, is the synergies and collaboration with other institutions of the Union and other research programs and partnerships, because we believe that it's fundamental for the successful use also of the public funds, but not only, it's really for the rail sector to be able to capitalize and use also resources that are coming from elsewhere in a coherent manner. I've been saying it many times, railways cannot bring a passenger from A to B, cannot bring goods from A to B. It's in our nature, the systematic collaboration and synergies that we need to achieve with the other sector, and we should be an example of it, and I think we have been. If you go to the next slide, you can see here in terms of status as of today of the Shift to Rail program. I've been telling you that our aim is to operationally close all the activities by 23, so by this year, and this is still there and achievable. We still have a 30 project to close in terms of administrative closure, and this will be done in 2024. But you can see that in terms of progress and completion of the innovation program, we are there. You can see, well, you could ask me, how can you make in a few days of December a jump of 5%? Obviously, this estimation is based on the deliverables and on the output that we have already approved. But the work is done, is simply not yet approved. So it's part of this administration that is still missing to be confirmed. And you can see we have largely delivered upon our promises in terms of what the joint undertaking will be doing also in 2024. We will see it in a moment, but we will also look into what are really the results out of all this work, what is the impact of these results inside the rail system. And for this reason, also in the meeting of tomorrow, we will focusing one part of the morning in having few examples from the Shift to Rail program, how the results of this research initiative actually changed and the market, if you want, because there are solutions that are being used either by the same actors or by other actors which are foreseen to buy and utilize those solutions. If you go to the next slide, you will see instead the status of the Europe's Rail program. I will not go into the detail to describe the Europe's Rail program, but in short, you know that we have three main pillars. The activities has been focusing mainly on the system pillar and the innovation pillar. Concerning the innovation pillar, I already mentioned that one of our objectives was to launch the first flagship project. This was achieved, and at the moment we are clearly monitoring already its results, and those projects are running for more than 1 year in this moment. We have also been granting 8 other projects that are dealing mainly with explorative or disruptive research. Those have been just started in Q3 2023 and obviously are doing okay. We have launched, and a call is open, a third call, so the call 2023, with 7 topics. And for the first time, we put a real cooperation with another joint undertaking, and which is Cesar-free. It's on the traffic management system. Again, how do we ensure a proper exchange of information between air traffic management and rail traffic management at the end to serve best the European passenger? And the last point, in terms of innovation pillar preparation, we have also prepare the call 2024 that today the governing board this morning approved with the work program 2024. And so we will be launching these in January already. So in very few years, we have been launching 4 calls. So I think it's a good achievement, but also thanks to all the work that the Europe's Rail team has done in collaboration, obviously, with all the members. In terms of system pillar, we have the first results being delivered, and in a moment we will explain. And then also tomorrow we will have also a dedicated session that will go into much more detail of the system pillar. The EDDP, I mentioned it already, and the deployment group as well. If you go to the next slide, you can see what are those 6 innovation pillars. Tomorrow will be presented in greater detail, but here is just a general status. So flagship project 1, as you know, deals with traffic management system and digital activities. And overall, we can consider that the project is going according to the plan. What we are putting particular attention is the alignment with the R&E activities, which are also linked with the publication from the European Commission of a regulation for the rail capacity management increase in the future. So looking also towards standardization activities, and this is also very much linked with the system pillar works. Flagship Project 2 deals with digital technologies applied to the rail system, more in particular ERTMS and ETCS type of technologies, ATO, and so on. And all the activities are going more or less accordingly to plan. A point of attention is the importance of collaboration, as it is actually for the first flagship project, of collaboration among flagship projects and with the system pillar. And here in particular, we have been also kickstarting a new activity with EUSPA and also ESA on EGNOS system, so on satellite positioning system, to have also the possibility of having a rail dedicated service for the augmented features that today, for example, the aviation system has. And so this is also an interesting research activity. By the end of this year, we will have to provide our technical specification to EUSPA to ensure, so it's the European Space Agency, to ensure that the rail requirements can be embedded into rail dedicated services for our testing in Flagship Project 2 of 2025. Flagship Project 3 deals with information technologies and infrastructure capability on how we manage the assets, both in terms of rolling stock and infrastructure, in an optimized manner in the digital world. So we're speaking about prediction maintenance, for example, and all the activities are going on according to plan, with few delays in some work packages, but nothing to be worried on. Flagship Project 4 is the same, is going on well. Flagship Project 4 deals with all the technologies that we have in order to further green the rail subsystems themselves. So we're talking about energy recovery systems. We're talking about hydrogen as well, where we have synergies with the clean hydrogen partnership, and so on and so forth. Flagship Project 5 deals with freight, as you well know, and in particular with 2 main aspects. One is the full digital freight train operation that largely deals with how do we integrate digital energy and automatic coupling communication in the rail system to make it fully digital. So it's very much linked with the activities of the EDDP. And on the other side, it also links to the logistic part of freight, how IT system can make rail much more performant in the logistic chain. It's in a yellow status because there were some delays in order to arrive to common operational requirements and to arrive also to some architectural specification for the digital automatic coupling. But now we are there, and these are good results because it's a green field. There is no such solutions today in the freight sector, and we're starting already with the right foot, meaning that we are starting with an harmonized approach. Obviously, this could have some impact in the time plan of Flagship Project 5. We are foreseeing an amendment in the first quarter of 2024. Flagship Project 3 deals with regional and remote lines, revitalization of remote lines. So the idea is really to push forward the ability of rail to both integrate with other transport system at regional level, and as well to decrease the cost of the operation and implementation of rail services. So the activities are going largely well. We had in the membership a withdrawal from some activities from SEDE that it's currently analyzed to an impact not on Flagship Project 6, which didn't have any impact, but in the longer term for Flagship Area 6, so meaning also the future projects. We go to the next one. We're talking about the Flagship Area 7, so disruptive research on guided transport mode and exploratory research. Here we have 8 projects that we have contracted and are up and running, all in green status. And you can see the different projects. We have from Flagship Area 7, pods for rail. Different type of innovative concepts of guided transport modes using pods, and we called it moving infrastructure. We have also linked with Flagship Area 7, MAD Rail, which is a maglev-derived system for railway. And then we have a series of other projects that are fulfilling mostly the exploratory research activities. For example, with Academics for Rail, which will build up a community of scientific research and academia, where we're also financing the next generation of PhD on rail innovative topics. We have Leader 2030, which is another project that deals with the ability of the rail sector, in particular of the SMEs, to face disruption in the supply chain. This was especially highlighted during the COVID time, and especially highlighted during the unavailability of key materials that the rail sector need. So it's really looking into how the supply chain can be best tuned to ensure a continuity of services from also SMEs. We have ESEP for Freight, which is a project that will bring more transparency of the services that freight transport has in terms of offers around Europe, because today any logistic operator really need to enter into a difficult discussion or a difficulty discovery to understand how they can transport their goods with rail. So we want to simplify that, and ESEP for Rail will help us to deliver also a public portal where it will be clearly transparent and available, this information to everyone. InBridge for You deals mainly with an assessment of the capability of European railway bridges, the dynamic compatibility of European railway bridges, and its input will especially help the standardization activities and also the agency in the TSI revision. And then we have the Rail for Cities that deals with railway station, which also it's a key interface with the passenger, and looking at how railway stations can integrate also with other transport modes from an energy perspective, and also socially be part of a city missions, if you want, related to rail. And finally, the last one that I haven't mentioned is DAC Core. DAC Core is a coordinated and support action that will help us to build up the possible migration roadmap toward the deployments of the European DAC Delivery Programme. If we go to the next one, we can see also some objectives and achievements of the system pillar. So the system pillar, I mentioned it, has been fully set up in 2023 and it started to achieve several outputs. Here on the right of your screen, you can see many of these outputs being already delivered. I will not go into all of them, but you can already see some practical output published on our website. Let me remind you that all the output of the system pillar will be publicly and fully available to everyone. And today, for example, for the trackside assets, we have already published a document that specifies the interfaces that each infrastructure manager can use in their own tender. So it's a level of specification that is voluntary in this moment of time. And again, everybody can use it in their tender. There are different levels of standardization that we would like to achieve with the system pillar. And the next level is harmonized standard or European standard. And then the level after will be obviously the regulation, so the input into the TSI. You can see that we have engaged already around 400 experts from the rail sector that is actively working on the system pillar. And I can tell you that it's a lot of organizational matter to get it right from the beginning. Obviously, we will not get it right from day one, but having spent a significant amount of time in configuring the correct process, I think is the right way forward. We have 50 million euros from the budget of the Union for the system pillar. And in 2023, we spent around 10 million. We go into the, just to mention the areas of activities of the system pillar for reminding everyone. So it's mainly about the command control and signaling system, but also the interface with the traffic management system. Those are the two areas where we will also go into very much detailed specifications. Also, the digital automatic coupling, and in particular, what we call the rules book, so how the operational process can be transformed in a clearly rules book that each operators can use later on in the future. And then we have a generic area which deals with railway system as overall, because we need also to see how all those systems can work together, and also challenging the status quo, because it's not only about the standardization, it's also looking into the architecture that can be future-proof, and if needed, proposing changes on the current architecture, taking into account, obviously, the question of who gained the benefit out of these activities and who has to pay the cost, and so to try to find the right balance among all of these. Go to the next one. So now, what do we expect from the next step, so next year? So for the next year, and already work that has been prepared this year, is having a look to the analysis of the first results from the flagship projects. And this is particularly important in view of the demonstration activities in 2025 and 2026 is behind the corner. So we needed to be sure that the output are of the right level to ensure that the demonstration activities are not delayed. The collaboration with EUSPA and ESA needs to get the traction. So we kickstarted it, but now we need also to secure the resources also on those two agencies as well. And what also is important, following the European Commission regulation on the use of railway infrastructure capacity in the single European railway area, is to ensure a good collaboration with all infrastructure manager because of the activities we're doing in Flagship Project 1 that can really contribute to operationalize the digitalization of capacity and traffic management. The other important thing we need to look at is obviously the conclusion, or the quick conclusion, I would say, of the grant agreement for 2024, because what we will put forward in 2024 is an anticipation of the activities of the flagship area. So it will be projects that complement the current flagship project, because we want to ensure that we give a priority on the correct elements that needs to be put in place for a delivery of the system changes that are written in the multi-annual work program. So it's a prioritization of the activities. The other part is to also be sure that in 2024 we set up right the synergies with Cesar, that I have mentioned it before, with the new project that will come out from the call 2023, but also with SNS, which is the European Smart Network and Services Joint Undertaking, which will work together with us with a new topic dealing with the future of the radio system. And then finally, what I also mentioned already before, 2024 will also be the operational closure, sorry, the contractor closure of the projects from the Shift to Rail program. We go to the next one. From the system pillar, one of the important elements to be delivered in the first quarter of next year is the first standardization and TSI input plan from the joint undertaking to be delivered to the Commission and worked out by the sector together with also the Commission and the agency. We need to continue in the system pillar to improve the organizational element out of the first year of experience of having work in domains and tasks, and to streamline the processes. We will have also a new subject that has been included. We will need to see if this subject will take an additional importance, but we will also work on a possible harmonized European railway diagnostic. So this will help us also on the digital elements, for example, of flagship project 3. And obviously, we have a series of tasks being already defined, or deliverable being already defined, that you can find on the right of your screen. And I will not go into the detail, but it's a lot of output that are expected in 2024, much more than in 2023. We go to the next one. We can see.
Giorgio, just maybe because there's a lot in this presentation. So yes, before Giorgio runs out of voice, can I see if anybody has any questions on the points he's delivered so far, online as well as, of course, in the room here? I guess a lot of you in the room have lived this with us, so you know the details. But, nope, nobody on the chat. Okay,
we're all aligned then, all clear. So you know the work that we need to do. That's very good. That's the first step, having a common understanding. Then deployment group is another activity that will be, I think, a very crucial and fundamental for the future also of this partnership, because we are really showing how the results activities are, shifting from a research solution towards an innovative solution. An innovative solution, to me, it's an idea that at the end, after the research, enter into the market and create an innovation. But for this to happen, we need also to ensure to look on all the elements to make this possible. So we need to see of the diversity of situation across EU of this possible implementation, including on the human factor, and evaluate both the risk and opportunity. We need also to identify for each of the solutions that we have researched if there is a need or not, because not all the solution will have this need, for a European coordination, because otherwise we cannot get the benefit that we are expecting out of this solution if it's not deployed in a coordinated manner across Europe, or simply it won't be efficient and generating any benefit for the early adopter. Thirdly, we would like to provide to who will later on have to implement those solution deployment packages. And with this, we mean that we provide some sort of guidance already, both from a technical perspective, but also from an operational perspective of how the system can be migrated. We're not starting from a greenfield situation. We're starting from a very brownfield situation in the rail system. So all of these needs to be carefully looked at, and the more we can facilitate this migration, the more opportunity we will have to have a successful impact in the rail system, and ultimately having a single European railway area. And then the last element to look at in the deployment group will certainly be the funding and financing. How do we implement? How do we actually have an investment plan that makes sense? And when I say we, it's actually you, the sector. It's not obviously the joint undertaking, but we can discuss together on the possible elements that could facilitate these investment plans at company levels as well. The governing board just approved a process also to set up this deployment group. So we will start to set it up already, launching the process in December, so that in January we can think to have the first step for its establishment. And one of the topics that we see as urgently needed in terms of coordination is about the future radio system, because as you know, there will be a dismissal, a stop, I missed the word, of the current GSMR system, and therefore we needed to plan for the correct migration for the future system as well. And then another point that I would like to mention is the European DAC Delivery Programme. It's a program that de facto, it's a topic for the deployment group that we created before the deployment group was existing. But this will continue to work, and especially we'll work together to support the European Commission to develop a comprehensive migration strategy for the coordination of the deployment of the DAC, as it has been put in a Commission communication on the greening of freight transport very recently, if I'm not wrong, in July, also identifying DAC as a key technology for the future. Then if we go to the next one, in 2024, the joint undertaking will also work for preparing, but also launching a call for expression of interest to select the associated member. In accordance with our Single Basic Act, we need to have associated members, so it's not an option, but it's also an opportunity, because we would like to use this new membership that will bring with them additional commitment to this partnership, also to close any possible gap that we may have identified in our program. And there are also gaps in terms of maybe new activities that can come up in the coming years. And that's the reason why in 2024, we are also planning an update of the multi-annual work program that will go hand in parallel with the call for associated member, so that new entities, being new associated member, but could potentially be also entities that are non-member replying to call for proposal, can cover this gap. We go to the next one. And this is my last slide. It's dissemination communication activities. We will have tomorrow a more in-depth presentation about it, but a message from my side is that you are doing an excellent research and innovation activities, but if we're not communicating about it, we are invisible. If we are invisible, there will be no future for new research activities because we don't know what are our successful results. So we need to use all the opportunity, and it's not only about the joint undertaking, it's mostly, I would say, about the beneficiary in the grants, and today a lot of you are present there, to ensure this communication activity and dissemination activity, both scientifically and when you have solutions that are ready for the market, commercially recognize where the output are coming from. So I heard recently a lot of presentation, for example, of ATO GOA2. Don't forget that ATO GOA2 has been made possible thanks also to all the work that you have been doing in the Shift to Rail program. So don't hesitate to also communicate about this. In terms of what Europe's Rail will be doing in 2024, here you have a snapshot of the events where we're going to participate. One of the focus we would like to put in 2024, beside the participation to InnoTrans, which is a commercial fair, which is a very much important fair. We will have a share stand for the first time with the European Commission and the European Union Agency for Railway. But we would like also to attend different forums than the past commercial fairs, because we think also that Europe's Rail, it's already quite known in the rail sector, but now that we have results, we need to get as known with those decision makers that can enable the next step from innovation to deployment. And with this, I conclude my overall presentation.
Great. Well, many thanks, Giorgio. And there is another chance for Q&A here, so I hope some of you have thought of some questions in the meantime. I mean, I think what is important, and of course what we need to go and do in terms of the communications effort, is not just to say that we're running a program, but really actually to show what the results of the program are and what that means in terms of products and solutions for the real world, where the improvement in the railway's business case, its offer to passengers and freight users will be. And I fear we get very caught up in our own research, so we need to keep a focus on actually explaining both to ourselves, to our management and to the outside world what the real added value of all of this is. But with that, and with perhaps the invitation to you all to probe a bit deeper as to some of what we've really achieved, I open the floor again. And we have some questions online.
Yeah, so I can read the questions. Yep. There are two questions online. One is, what is the interface between the European DAC Delivery Programme Work Package 3 and the European Deployment Group? Well, to answer directly, if you want the European DAC Delivery Programme, as I mentioned before, if the Europe's Rail Deployment Group would have been created before, it would have been simply a subgroup, if you want, of the the Europe's Rail DAC. I'm confusing. The Europe's Rail Deployment Group. Because this has been created before, we won't change the structure at the moment of the DDP, but obviously is considered as part of the Europe's Rail program.
But then, putting it the other way round as well, in a sense, the work we've done in the DDP is a bit of a model for how we think that the deployment group should work when it's set up. Obviously, it's got a broader focus on potentially any of the work streams being developed by the JU. It may well be used quite early on to address some of the issues surrounding the rail next-gen communication system, replacement for GSMR. But I mean, the precise details of that are to be developed by us early next year.
Exactly, and maybe these also answer a bit the questions that are coming up right now. What is the expected composition of the deployment group? And indeed, we will, by the way, publish in any case on our website to be fully transparent what we are expecting in terms of composition. But as Keir mentioned, it's a bit on the model that we had for the European DAC Delivery Programme, so to have it as much as comprehensive as possible, open as well, so that no stakeholders will be left unheard. And there is another question about the deployment group. Still, it's interesting because it's obviously the novelty, so everybody is interested about it. If it's just taking care of the innovation pillar topics or system pillar matters. So the answer is obviously both, because de facto the deployment group doesn't have or will have few resources associated to it. So most of the work will come from both the innovation pillar and the system pillar works that will feed the deployment group with also migration topics that have been, for example, in the system pillar, been looked at from a technical perspective and in some cases also operational perspective.
Great, thanks for that, Giorgio. Are there any further questions? I see none. Good. Well, in that case, we will move rapidly on with our agenda. And of course, one of the other innovations required under the new programme was that we should make a bigger effort to ensure cooperation and synergies between different parts of the Horizon Europe programme. And Horizon Europe, you remember, is the overarching €900 million research programme of the Commission, which includes all of the JUs, all sorts of other partnerships, as well as the open general research programme. So we've been aiming to develop that work, in particular through the so-called Clean Planet Inter-Partnership Assembly that's run by our colleagues responsible for the Clean Planet Partnerships. That had its first assembly back in 2020, aimed at bringing together all of the various partners responsible for the driving climate neutral technologies. And I'm happy in that respect that we have Andrea Gentili with us today, who, apart from being involved with us in running the JU, is also the Clean Planet Partnerships Manager and the Deputy Head of the Low Emission Future Industries team in DGRTD. So he's going to give a bit more of a presentation of the overall strategy in terms of ensuring these synergies across the system. So Andrea, over to you, please.
Thank you very much, Keir. Yes, good afternoon. I had already the opportunity to introduce myself this morning to the governing board, at the governing board meeting. Yes, I'm currently the deputy of the unit, the new unit, which has been created 2 weeks ago, which has also changed name. And this unit is dealing with all the research and innovation for transport in DG RTD. So basically addressing all the 4 transport modes. And but as it has been said, since a couple of years now, I have another hat and I'm trying to ensure synergies within the different partnerships or missions. There is an underlying assumption that we have in relation to the partnerships or missions which have been continued or created in Horizon Europe back in 2021, which is the following. Partnerships and missions are, let's say, an instrument to provide the strategic directionality and funding research and innovation at European level. Strategic directionality, because as usual, the money is not enough. So we need to extract the best and the most from the limited money available, in particular, the money from the public side, but the money from the private side. And I fully share with what Keir said in the beginning. Partnerships have two major characteristics and should continue to have those characteristics. The first one, partnerships, even though they are instruments for research and innovation, they need to provide impact. They should be impact driven. And the presentation from Giorgio was very much adequate and appropriate, talking about innovation pillars, presenting the future activities of the deployment group, for example. So impact of European research results is not an option. It's a must, because we need to deliver in due time. The second characteristic, so the first impact, the second is policy alignment. And this is important. It has been mentioned by Keir. All those partnerships, no matter, we are talking about rail here, but we have partnerships, as you know, in aviation, basically two, hydrogen, or partnership which are not joint undertaking, but also in automotive co-program partnerships. So basically, they need to contribute to the policy objectives. Just looking back to 2021, May 2021, the Smart and Sustainable Mobility Strategy is one example. For the CESAR joint undertaking, the Single European Sky, and so on and so on. So this is important to remind. So now, why synergies are important? Because there is another important element. If the policy objective is to contribute with this instrument to the transformation of European sector, now the rail sector, or could be aviation or automotive sector in Europe, towards a more digital, more green, more resilient, more circular. So if this is the objective, we need to make sure that we have all the necessary competence and the stakeholders in order to achieve the objectives. We do not think that the decarbonization of aviation, just to make an example, could only be found, the solution for the decarbonization of the aviation sector could all be found within the traditional aviation stakeholders. Because they don't know how to deal with hydrogen. They don't know how to deal with electrification, electricity within the aircraft or the airports. So it's important to make sure that we widen the community of the stakeholders, and therefore we widen the competencies. And that's why the initiative of let's say, the call for expression of interest for the associated members, also for this community, for the rail, is important. And we should not, it's important now, because the window of opportunity is now. Why? Because the first part of the work of the partnership was basically in Horizon Europe to develop the building blocks, the necessary technologies, no matter hydrogen, electrification, or digital technologies for this specific field. But now we need to go to the second phase, which is the focus on specific demonstrators, reaching the necessary TRL level, 6, 7, in such a way that in due times, in 2030, new products will be put in the market, and those new products will effectively contribute to the reduction of CO2 emissions or improving air quality, and so on and so on. So synergies between the different partnerships. Well, it has been mentioned, I happen to be the chair of this inter-partnership assembly, which is at the beginning was basically, let's say, gathering the partnerships in the area of energy and transport in my directorate. But in the last year has been, again, widened a bit to cover also digital technologies, so the activities in Cluster 4, digital manufacturing technologies, and so on. So we need to know, and you need to know, who does what in the others area. And this is an opportunity, it's the Interpartnership Assembly. We welcome very much the joint call that you guys, you managed to do together with the colleagues in CESAR. I must confess that it was a difficult exercise within the Commission, because the first reaction of the lawyers was this is not possible. But of course, we pushed, because we said politically it's important, it will have an impact. So it's basically in line with what we want to do, find a way to make it happen. And this is how things should be. So, and also the one on the SNS, which is in the pipeline, which could be a good example for my colleagues, other colleagues in the other partnership to develop other synergies. For example, I have not seen yet a concrete synergetic topic between the two aviation joint undertakings. And I'm pushing them to do that. So the scientific advisory group or committee, I don't know how in this in the rail has been called, but could be instrumental to make sure that the work program of the partnership is looked from another perspective. Do we have any gaps? Do we need some additional stakeholders? It's important that this group will look at this program and the activities of the partnership from an helicopter point of view, and stay in touch with the other scientific advisory groups in the other partnerships. How the synergies between the partnership have been concretized. We have some example between, for example, clean hydrogen and clean aviation joint undertaking. They signed a memorandum of understanding to first strategically develop topics which are at the borderline between those two partnerships. One dealing with let's say, research related to, for example, hydrogen tank, and the other one dealing with the integration of those tanks filled with hydrogen in the aircraft for the conditions that the aircraft have to operate. Minus 52 degrees, 250 millibar pressure at 10 kilometers in the sky. And then they have developed this memorandum of understanding to make sure that those topics are also evaluated by a team of joint colleagues from the two joint undertakings. But this is an example. Why I'm telling you all of this? Just to say that from one side, of course, each partnership has its own specificities. Fine. But you may have good ideas, and I'm sure that Giorgio is very much in contact with Axel, the equivalent executive directors of the JU, but also with the colleagues in the Commission. MOVE first, but also RTD and the others who are relevant. There are two other elements that I want to mention in my short intervention, is the synergies between EU programs. This is a task, I would say, not necessary for the partnership, for the joint undertaking itself, but the Commission colleagues, me and the other colleagues in the Commission, because we need to make sure that there is a sort of, in a way, pipeline approach between the good European projects funded with the joint undertaking within the context of Horizon Europe, and those projects, the successful ones, of course, could be helped to increase their level of TRL and could be deployed in using other European programs such as innovation funds. Innovation funds, they launched on the 23rd of November a very big call of 4 billion. It's amazing. And for the first time, what we managed to achieve is to make sure that those innovation funds could make an explicit reference to the two sectors, aviation and maritime, which are basically contributing with the emission trading schemes. The revenues of this program are coming from aviation. But, you know, from one side, we ask you to connect with the other stakeholders, and we have in the Commission the responsibility to do the same, to make sure that we do not work in silos. And that's why we are here. And that's why, by the way, in Horizon Europe, it was decided that none of the partnership could be led only by one DG, by one service. In the clean aviation, we have also RTD and MOVE, but in clean hydrogen, we have 4 different DGs involved, Klima and Ener, on top of MOVE. And so this is, as I said, our responsibility. What I can see in the next relevant for this group is basically to make sure that my colleagues and myself could exploit synergies with the Digital Europe program, which is by definition, SNS is one example, but high-performance computing, big data, all the digital partnerships have to be aligned. Let me remind you something. You know that in Horizon Europe, there is a specific Annex 4 in the regulation saying that we have to do these synergies. However, this is not the case for the other programs. Innovation funds or LIFE or Digital Europe, they do not have any specific obligation. So we hope that in the discussion of FP10, this can be addressed. The last point that I want to mention is the synergies with the EU, national and regional relevant initiatives. And here, I think that the state representative group in each of the partnership are extremely relevant, because this is basically what they need to do, to make sure that the program is not deployed at European level. We have heard Giorgio saying many things about the future deployment, but in isolation with the activities of the different member states / regions. By the way, in regions, in particular, in many regions, we do have European money through the structural funds. What we are trying to put in place with clean hydrogen and clean aviation is a structure to make sure that there is an alignment of those programs in the different member states, in the different regions, making use of these structural funds under the headings innovation, which is one of the 4 headings where you can, the national regional authorities can spend money. So on the 4th of March, just for an example, we will do in the Committee of Regions a presentation of what we have achieved with some few regions, Region Campania, Region Piemonte, hopefully, Region Andalusia, Region Occitanie. In the field of aviation, why those regions? There are more than 650 regions in Europe. Of course, we started from the most relevant. Airbus is located in Occitanie, is the region of Toulouse, where Airbus is there. We have aviation centers, center of excellence in Campania for testing the future aircraft and so on and so on. So it's, again, food for thoughts. In the different, even though in this specific case, it's important to align these activities with the member states, with the states. Of course, it's less relevant for the regions. So, having said this, you can always contact me if you need any contacts, and with a lot of encouragement that for the activities that you have to do the next year and beyond, I give back the floor to the chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Andrea. Are there any questions before we move on? Yeah.
Thank you. Maybe not a question, but a comment. Yeah, as I said in the morning, I'm a newcomer, and observing the situation in the railway sector, I really appreciate able to mention this aviation and these, let's say, pilot project in the regions. But we have seen that there was many, let's say, hydrogen project on in the public transport, buses, and also on tracks. But there are several, let's say, difficulties to keep it running in the long term. So I would like to really highlight this issue, how to keep it alive for the future, because otherwise we are finding the solutions which are, let's say, for the taxpayers, simply too expensive. Sorry for being so direct, but that's a story.
Yeah, well, I think it's a very important point. And of course, when we're doing things as demonstration projects, as trials, then, yeah, sure, we accept that we're proving the technology, we're finding out how to make it work, and that therefore it has to be supported, but that's clearly not the permanent solution. Andrea, do you want to add anything more? Or, I mean, it's an observation we're all aware of, I think. But...
No, I fully share your comment. And then I really would like to apologize because I need to rush into another meeting. I have the European Partnership Stakeholder Forums already up and running, and I need to speak at 4 o'clock in another, of course, part of Brussels. Luckily, because I'm fond of sustainable mobility, I have my bike, so it shouldn't be any problem apart from some water coming from the sky. But this is something that, yeah, it's not under my control.
Yeah. No, well, many thanks for that, and indeed we will release you to the joys of Brussels rain and move rapidly on then. So I think I'm slightly conscious of the fact that Joseph needs to leave by 4:45. Okay, so we have a little bit of time. In that case, we will continue into the Scientific Steering Committee presentation, at least first. I might, Miroslav, take you later so that we make sure Joseph speaks before he has to go. The JU, of course, has two advisory bodies attached to it. One, which, as I say, I'll invite Miroslav to talk to you about a bit later, is the State Representatives Group, representing all of the member states, of course, important for linking back to national research programs and also to trying to ensure that member states are aware of what we're doing in the JU and fully take advantage of it. But we also have a scientific steering group, which, as the name suggests, is, of course, intended to provide independent expert scientific advice to the JU, of course, to make sure that the work that's done in the JU truly reflects the state of the art and is building on the best, latest technologies and ideas across the transport and sector and more generally. For that, and the group was formally reconstituted for the new JU only on the 15th of November. So we would like to congratulate Angela de Ferraro and Juan de Dios Sánchez Bobby, who are the chair and the vice chair of the group. I don't think Angela can be with us today, but Juan is online, and so I would... Oh, sorry, he's here with us even. Yes, okay, even better, he's in the room. So I would invite you to just present a little bit about the group's work and what inputs we can expect from you, but what inputs you would like from the rest of the stakeholders.
Thank you very much, Keir. This is a short presentation about what is the Scientific Steering Group, because as you have said, we have constituted in 20 days ago. But I have prepared a presentation for today in order to understand what is a scientific steering group in terms of Horizon Europe, but also how is the status in the governance of this Europe region undertaking. So please, maybe we can continue with the presentation. It is possible, yes. So from the legal framework, we have to understand that this kind of scientific committee, it was the term used before Horizon Europe, because in Horizon Europe, this term has changed to scientific steering group, because the role is different and the regulation is also different. So the governance is based on the regulation 2085, and it is clearly defined what is the sense of this scientific group. So in clause 33, the scientific advisory body concept is focused in 3 main points. One is that it's a decision of the joint undertaking to create or not the scientific advisory function. In Eurorail, they decided yes. And in this case, they have to create 2 solutions, or a body or an individual member join an ad hoc terms according to particular requirement. In any case, the scientific steering group has to provide independent scientific advice, and it is very important because it is very difficult to have an independent liaison between the state of the different actors that are involved in the Euro region undertaking and the community that are expecting the impact of this program. But at the end, this is the role of this scientific steering group. So we have to provide the scientific advice, and this is clearly written in this regulation, that this scientific advice is regarding to the annual work program in order to analyze if the program is according as expected and defined before the joint undertaking was created, and of course the other activities that are usable for the joint undertaking and for the work that they are done. In Article 21st, they define what is the action of the scientific advice. So it's independent scientific advice, so it's similar a term that's used in conformity evaluation, where we need to find impartiality and independency of our criteria. And as I said before, 2 possible action on advisory body or other request for independent expert. But in Article 91, Europe region undertaking opened the extension from a scientific advisory body. So at the end, we are here, we are in advisory body, and if we continue with the next slide, we can see where is the scientific steering group, in which you can see in the governance of the Eurorail, we are a usable tool for the governing board, and of course for the executive director as the representative at the end for the program. And this is clearly that indicate that we are not in the program, not in the system. We are only advising to governing board in order what they are expecting from our side. That is the evaluation of the annual program, the identification of what happened with the result of the project, in order to find among all the community of Eurorail joint undertaking the fully alignment between the result of the joint undertaking and the declaration in the multi-annual plan. So in particular, once this is in the next slide, you can see what is the mission. It is clear, I said before, but now it's necessary to write in black and white, in our case in green. This is the color for this Euro region undertaking. So the scientific steering group has to provide advice and recommendation. This is the final decision of our role for the rail research and innovation program. So we are focusing on this activity. What does it mean, the request for advice and recommendation? Very clear. Progress, implementation, delivery approach, including the questions that are in relation with industrial research, innovation, and exploratory activities, and other activities that could be in the future. The interaction among the scientific steering group and the governance of Israel is, as you can see before in the picture, as the link with the governing board and the executive director. So it is clear that there are the possibility of requesting us any action, or we can also provide some information to the governing board in order to analyze among the partner, funding member and actor in the European Undertaking if our proposal takes sense or not in the program. So finally, this is our last, please next. Yes. So only for your information, some question about the composition and organization of the scientific steering group. There are not information about our role because, as it was clear, said before, we start 20 days ago. But the result of this scientific steering group is the result of a call of expression on interest, individual, that was launched in March and was closed in June. After that, we have take the opportunity to confirm our availability to continue in this scientific steering group. And our first meeting was 20 days ago with two main research. One is the adoption of the rules of procedure, the rules of the game for our group in the context of this joint undertaking. And the result was under consensus of the member of the group. They were decided to have the group chaired by Angela Di Febraro and the vice chair from myself. I apologize, Angela, because it was impossible for attending the meeting today, so I'm here in this case. In any case, all the information is available in the website of Israel. You can read there what is our precedent from our common work and what is our expertise. And in this first meeting, the executive director ordered our first homework in order to analyze the next, to provide the scientific advice for the incoming activities from Israel. So no more from my side. Thank you very much. If you had any question or any curiosity, I'm available for you.
Great, many thanks. Have you discussed yet the kind of things you will be sort of looking to provide input to us on in the immediate future?
No, okay. We have the homework for Georgia in order to analyze. It is clear for us what have to do in the medium term, but at this moment we have not any decision about this.
Great, many thanks. Are there any questions for Juan? You see none? Okay, well, many thanks for your input, and of course we will look forward to working much more closely with you in future. And with that, and as I say, Miroslav, I will come back to you later, if I may. And rather than having the coffee break now, actually, no, we could have the coffee. You've got time for us to have the coffee break? Yeah, okay. Well, according to my programme, we have a quarter of an hour coffee break now, so let us do that. And then we come back to the panel on synergies with the agencies, other JUs and programmes, where I will happily introduce Joseph, who is with us, Rodrigo de Costa, who is the Executive Director of the European Union Agency for Space, EUSPA, and also joining us remotely at that point will be Andreas Boschen, who is the Executive Director of the CESAR JU. But that's just to whet your appetite for after coffee, but we have coffee for quarter of an hour, so if you can be back here at 15:40, please. Well, let's say 15:35 on the basis of that, where you will be here by 15:40. Thanks. So everybody online, it's not back at 16:15 or 15:15, but 15:35. Yep, thank you. So good afternoon again, everybody. I said 15:35 for 15:40 on the basis that way you might have found your way back to the room, but better than commission coffee. Okay. So for everybody online's benefit, the room is now refilling. The other three definitely online.
Yeah, check it will show up on my screen. So I would.
Okay, yeah.
Just
The
make
others
sure.
are online, definitely.
Yes, yes.
Okay. Excellent, very good. Well, as the last stragglers are finding their way back to their places, let us get on with the next session of this afternoon. And as I said, since Joseph Doppelbauer has to leave us for another meeting before too long, I will move to the session on EU synergies. So between programs, agencies, and indeed other entities. And as I said before, we will have Joseph Doppelbauer, the Executive Director of the Railway Agency, who is in the room with us, Andres Boschen, who is the Executive Director of CESAR, Rodrigo de Costa, who is the Executive Director of USPA, the Space Agency, and also an apologies for missing them before. We have Ariane Boersma, who is the ICT Director and Chief Information Officer of ProRail, but also representing RNE RailNet Europe, the infrastructure managers shared ICT centre, all to speak to us on how to manage the synergies between the various programs. And as you've already heard this afternoon from Andrea, of course, synergies are vitally important because although we've been clear that Europe's rail is the place where we should do all of the pure rail research, all of the rail-focused activities, of course, that doesn't mean that there aren't many relevant things being done across other parts of the programme that we should leverage, use and interface. And so for that reason, we have USPA here, who of course we're cooperating with on areas surrounding satellite positioning, potentially satellite communications, remote sensing, etc. CESAR, who Andreas will certainly talk about some of the joint programs, because that again is a rather similar, very much a sister program to Europe's Rail, and clearly the more we can adopt similar approaches and also ensure the better integration of road and rail, the better. And then with Joseph and Ariane, I mean, they are both in a sense consumers of the output of the JU, but also very much key influencers of the programme. In the case of the Railway Agency, of course, they in the end will have to take the successful outputs of the JU and translate them into our technical specifications for interoperability and thus into the technical framework of the railway system. But equally, we greatly value their technical input into what actually should be in the programme in the first place, and ensuring that the results as they are developed are fit for purpose. And in a similar way, of course, RNE and the individual infrastructure managers, I mean, they're very much the consumers of much of the results of the JU in terms of the work now that we're doing on traffic and capacity management. For individual IMs, clearly also all the work on infrastructure in general, on signalling, ERTMS, etc. in particular. So again, very close interaction with them to ensure the alignment of what we do with what they need. So with that, let's plough into the panel. Now, this is intended to be an interactive session. So rather than the four of them just sitting here making statements, we're going to try and stimulate some discussion. And I have a question for Andreas and Rodrigo first. And of course, Cesar and Yuspar are not only working with Europe's Rail, but also with many other agencies and JUs across our spectrum. So I'd ask each of them, starting with Andreas, I mean, what is your experience so far with cross-agency collaboration? What have you seen as the benefits of the added value of such cooperation? So Andreas.
Yeah. Good afternoon. I hope you can hear me. Hi, Kier, Giorgio, Joseph, all colleagues. I have still some memories from rail, from my past experience. Thanks for inviting me to your General Assembly. Sorry for not being physically in your room with you, because I'm on my way to Toulouse to meet some aviation stakeholders. And indeed, we are a sister joint undertaking of Europe's Rail. And I would like to recall that SESAR stands for Single European Sky Air Traffic Management Research. And our ambition is to make Europe the most efficient and environmentally friendly sky to fly in the world. And how do we do this? Our approach is to define, to develop, and to deploy. So how do we define? We have a European Air Traffic Management Master Plan to which all the aviation stakeholders are adhering to. And then secondly, we are developing, of course, we are a research organization, joint undertaking, absolutely, like Europe's Rail. So we are managing research projects, exploratory research, industrial research. So we are making research solutions. And then comes the last part, deployment, which is a bit outside our core task, but still. And there we come in with the synergies, because we are receiving support from other EU programs in the area of deployment, and this is the experience I would like to share with you. So in the area of air traffic management, we have the situation that the Commission has the power via implementing regulations to make mandatory our research solutions whenever a synchronized and harmonized implementation across Europe is required. So when it is not sufficient that an airport here, an airline there, an air navigation service provider in country X or in country Y is doing it, but where we really need a system, a network effect, and then there is a possibility to make such SESAR solutions mandatory. And carrot and stick, there's also then a carrot for the stakeholders how to implement them, and this comes via the Connecting Europe facility, which is the European Infrastructure Fund. And we have a SESAR deployment manager who is organizing this and handing out grant money to the stakeholders for implementing this. And now what I wanted to really talk about is what we are doing in addition, because we have now launched digital sky demonstrators with the financial support, again, of the Connecting Europe facility in order to bring our research solutions, which we leave at the stage of TRL 6, to push them one step further and bring them up to TRL level 7 and 8. And this means that the operational stakeholders, the end users, are successfully implementing results of our research into permanent assets. And what is very important during these demonstrators, we have all the work on standards, we have the work on regulatory issues. Joseph is doing this for rail, we have the Aviation Safety Agency, EASA, which is doing this for us, and we are developing the real business case from an operational perspective, and this is then facilitating further market initiative. So far we have launched 5 digital sky demonstrators under 2 CEF calls, tackling Aviation Green Deal, the integration of drones into our skies, and we are working very closely with CINEA, the executive agency of the Commission who is managing the Connecting Europe facility on these projects. So in conclusion, we want to try to bridge the gap between the end of research and the start of implementation by using these relevant EU funds in close cooperation with MOVE and CINEA. Our aim is to accelerate and facilitate the market uptake of our research activities. That is the experience I wanted to share. Thank you.
Great. Many thanks, Andreas. And of course, we are very much in the process of tapping your experience on how we can also build on that experience for Europe's Rail. because we have exactly the same issues. It's great having good research, but fairly pointless if it stays in the box. So we'll come back to that in a minute, but I'll pass the floor to Rodrigo as well, again, for his experience of sharing across programs. We can't hear you at the moment. We have a sound problem, I'm afraid.
Is it? Can you hear me now?
Yep, that's good now.
Very good. Sorry, there was here some setting on my side. So first of all, thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me to be here with you today for this General Assembly. Unfortunately, I cannot be with you in Brussels. I'm in Prague at our headquarters. If I look outside, it is probably a wise decision not to travel since Prague is covered of snow, like many places in Europe right now. So coming directly to your question, I mean, as an agency, we have, among other missions, to foster the utilization of space technology, space data, space services. We do this both for institutional users as well as for private users, so for business users, customers that then will use this data to create and services to create added value services for the market. Now, when it comes to the institutional use, certainly agencies and the collaboration between agencies plays really a very important role. We have established across the year several collaborations in many different domains. I will maybe just to cite a few. We work on fishery matters, maritime security, border protection, etc., etc. All these areas where space finds an application, and certainly absolutely unavoidable. We are also working on aspects of the rail domain. Now, the network of agencies and the relation between agencies is very important. We put a lot of focus onto that, a lot of emphasis. Certainly, we share many of the common challenges, many of the common issues, but we also have many of the common solutions. Now, if we look concretely at the space, at the link between space and the rail domain, and like for other segments, our objective is, of course, to ensure that space services are also adopted in rail, in several different areas of application, maybe whether it is to improve rail performance, for example, passenger information systems, wagon telematics, or to help reduce costs, such as, for example, in the area of railway signal. And in order to do that, and the work that we do together with the European Railway Agency, with Europe's rail, is fundamental because it is a way that we have to engage with the stakeholder community in the rail segment, and then, of course, support also via the R&D programs that are available. This is not something that we started to do now or a few months ago. Actually, this collaboration is from long. As far as I could find here in my little internal research preparing for today, the history goes as long as 10 years, back in 2013, where we started with the first projects. At the time, there was a project, some of you may remember, the Shift to Rail Lighthouse project called the Next Generation train control. So in a nutshell, certainly collaboration with agencies is crucial for us, and in particular, of course, in the rail domain. Thank you.
Many thanks for that. So, I mean, clearly many things that we are working on with USPA. It always takes longer to deliver than we would like, but I think that's our common experience with everything in rail, and certainly something we will continue to explore, and we can come back to in a minute. But I think next I want to move on to Joseph and Ariane, because, I mean, clearly, as I said, you are very much users of the output of the JU. And what I'm interested to understand from your perspective is what more we can do to actually improve the quality of the output for input into the TSIs and for other regulations. What's improved since Shift to Rail, and what do we still need to work on? Joseph first, and then I'll come to Ariane.
Well, I just wanted to continue where Rodrigo had ended. And of course, the problem with space is we are reaching for the stars, which is, of course, more difficult than just staying on ground with rail. The mission of ERA, the European Union Agency for Railways, is to move Europe towards sustainable and safe railways without frontiers. So in this very short sentence, we have three aspects: ecology, safety, and of course, interoperability. Now, the mandate of the agency has explicitly the two topics, safety and interoperability. We have also a role as system authority for ERTMS, which, by the way, includes radio. This was also why I was speaking this morning in the context of FRMCS. And we are system authority for telematics, which connects us with RNE. The important aspect covered by Europe's rail, for me, is on two very important points. The one is content-wise, and I'm coming back to this in a moment, but the other one is community building. And the community building has been very visible this morning and this afternoon, both in the governing board and in the General Assembly. The very important improvement that I see here is also through the introduction of the system pillar, because already in 2009, when we had the first ideas about what later became Shift Rail and then morphed into Europe's rail, we were seeing the need to develop harmonized and validated solutions so that then the process of producing the technical specifications for interoperability and ultimately leading to deployment could be more efficient. This has been a vision, and now with the system pillar, we have at least the formal framework, the cooperation between the agency and Europe's rail. I'm now not speaking about the close cooperation of ERA with EUSPA, and I'm also not speaking about the cooperation that ERA has with RNE and which we will also formalize with an MOU shortly. The cooperation between ERA and Europe's rail is on two ends. The one is we are influencer. We have a role as observer and advisor in the governing board. We also input to Europe's rail our research needs, and we have also submitted to Europe's rail our requirements on the STIP, on the standardization and TSI input plan. Then we are, of course, the recipient of the research results, because in several TSIs we have open points. We have also sometimes issues coming from authorization cases where we need the appropriate scientific and technical backing. And we also expect concrete proposals, concrete outcomes that will then be transferred into TSIs. We have heard in the report by Giorgio some examples. ATO, Grade of Automation 2, is one example where results coming out, in that case from Shift to Rail, were then transferred into the technical specifications for interoperability. So there is a clear synergy on the both aspects, getting quality output from the joint undertaking, but also being able to rely on a community that consists of suppliers, of operators, of infrastructure managers, and also of research institutions that contribute to a consistent picture of technology for the European railways.
No, many thanks, Joseph. I mean, as I said in the introduction, the problem with Europe's railways is that we are still very fragmented. So the fact that we can use the JU to bring all of the stakeholders together, both the manufacturers, the researchers, and then the operational railways, both RMs and IUs, is extremely important. I mean, it would be interesting to hear from Andreas and Rodrigo how that works in your sectors. But before we do that, I want to go to Ariane and ask for his feedback from the RNE perspective as to sort of how the JU is now working and how we're ensuring the relevance of the results to the work you're doing through RNE.
Thank you. Yeah, we are really depending on the work we do together, because we all have the same goal. As you said, we are really fragmented in Europe and between the different countries we are in. And I think most of the work is aligned, what we are doing together. And I also want to add the innovation pillar and the system pillar are really working closely together, because also as not only as an RNE representative, but also as an IM as ProRail, we are really depending on the harmonization of the regulations, the TSI specifications, and all we have to do together to make standardizations in traffic management system, train control system, but also at capacity management. So it's really crucial for us to work closely together in a fragmented landscape we are working in.
Thanks, Dave. Is there more we can do to help join up within organisations? Because I mean, we've certainly seen, we were discussing FRMCS this morning, for example, we've seen that sometimes, because the IMs are big organisations as well, that sometimes people are working one part of an organisation on something without their colleagues necessarily being aware of what's going on, or as aware as they should be. Yeah. Is there more we can do to help overcome that? I mean, obviously, it's a problem inherent in all big organisations, but anything we can do to help would clearly help. Where do you think we could do more on that?
I think decision making it takes a long time, and especially to make specifications. I think every country has to step over its shadow sometimes. And I think you can make a nice bridge function in that. So decision making to get the bridge between the countries could be a real positive side we have to work on together.
Great. Well, and that of course also will bring us to the deployment group, which is the new innovation, the one thing that's still to be really got going in the JU, which is where we will look together at how we deploy the technologies. I mean, we have that already for the digital coupler, but for other new technologies, it's something that is still to be developed, but put into operation, we hope, early next year.
Yeah, and I think also what we noticed this morning is the shortage, for example, of personnel, of technicians. We all need. We can't afford to be more country specific. We have to look at a wider platform here in Europe. So that I think that's also a thing we can facilitate together.
Yeah, no, and that is a very important message. Important also when we come back to the state representatives group later, that we simply don't have the resource in the rail industry to develop national solutions. Maybe in the past we did, but that's certainly no longer an option. No, so an important takeaway. Okay, so back to Andreas, and maybe Giorgio wants to comment on this one as well. I mean, we've talked about synergies in a rather theoretical manner up to now, but we actually do have an open joint call, the one that Andrea mentioned earlier, caused all sorts of problems with the lawyers when we actually said, well, we're really going to cooperate, and then they said you can't, but luckily we managed. So Andrea, do you want to explain a little bit more about how this joint call is actually going to work and what our expectations of it are? And then Giorgio, I guess, come in as well.
Yes, thank you. Multimodality and passenger experience is one of our 9 flagships in our Digital European Sky program. I think this fits well with the overall mobility strategy of the European Union and the European Commission. We would like to bring the door-to-door mobility to the people, and we would like to make mobility as seamless as possible. And we would also like to let the passengers choose. What do they want? The shortest travel, the less environmentally impacting, the cheapest one, the certain quality, and so on. So therefore, we think collaboration between different modes is very important. And in this case, it is rail and aviation. You would like to integrate these two sectors when it comes to operation planning, real-time information exchange, and even more importantly, crisis management. So Rodrigo, when you are stuck in Prague due to snowfall or whatever happens nowadays with weather, extreme weather conditions, it's maybe good if the two modes talk to each other, and maybe the one can help the other. And if the airport is down, the rail can kick in, or if the rail network has an issue, maybe aviation can help out. I think this is what we are looking into this call, and this collaboration with Europe's rail joint undertaking will ensure a better integration of the two modes, like I said, to help passengers. And we think it's also important for an environmental point of view, because better intermodal planning will also have less fuel and CO2 emissions, and also hopefully, and I think I'm quite sure, have less noise and local air quality issues around the airport, around the railway stations. You mentioned from an administrative point, we are the first to go. We have to learn how to do it, but I'm quite sure we will be successful. We are very grateful that Europe's Rail has launched this call, and we are now collaborating very closely with Giorgio and his team. And our expectation is really to bring the two communities together and to work out interesting proposals which will really enhance the passenger experience across our two modes. And so in a nutshell, we are waiting for your good proposals by February next year, and then together we will manage and get the results out of this research. Thank you.
Yeah, maybe just jumping in what Andrea said, I couldn't say it better, but maybe from a Europe's Rail perspective, to put into context this call for proposal, that I also encourage each of you to look at and apply to. It's a real paradigm shift for the rail sector, because we are really good in looking into ourselves, into our problem, and not looking so much into the passenger problem. And this call, it's also about this. It's about providing solutions to the passengers, but it's a paradigm shift for rails, because we are also doing it in a harmonized manner on traffic management system that today are not harmonized in Europe. So it's also part of our flagship area 1, that aims also of creating this necessary interoperability between traffic management systems. And it's just the first, the first step towards maybe achieving something greater, which is absolutely linking to the multimodality. Rail, I already mentioned it before, cannot bring a passenger from A to B, cannot bring goods from A to B, but we think that rail, it's a backbone solution for the mobility and transport of tomorrow.
Great, thank you for that. Well, let's move on back to the synergies with satellites. And of course, I mentioned earlier a number of the areas where there are important potential synergies between the railways and the satellite community. Perhaps the most promising is the use of satellites for absolute positioning. Of course, as you all know, at the moment, positioning is achieved through balises and train detection systems, so a lot of expensive and difficult to maintain equipment on the track. If we can move to absolute satellite positioning, that could bring all sorts of savings, also improvements in overall train capacity. It's proven somewhat hard so far because, of course, to rely on satellite positioning, it has to be absolutely fail-safe, which with multipath errors, etc., has been slightly difficult to eliminate. but a lot of work is progressing. Much of it was presented in Madrid back in September. So, Rodrigo, are we on the right track, and are we going to see satellite positioning on our trains in the next few years?
Thank you. Well, I hope so. I hope the sooner the better. Absolutely. And I think you've mentioned the reasons for that, or some of the reasons for that. And maybe before going there, let me take a quick step back, because indeed we have been looking at positioning, and there are other things of space that can help the railway sector. You've mentioned those in your introduction. I mean, we have talked about also certainly absolute positioning. We've talked about communications and satellite-based communications. Talk about as well Earth observation / remote sensing, areas that can bring something to different areas and different parts of the railway sector. Now, coming back to what we did back in Madrid. So yes, in September we had our workshop or conference, Space for Innovation in Rail, towards satellite-based ERTMS. And that was actually a very good event. I think it was an opportunity to bring together many different actors. We heard certainly the agencies that are involved in the matter. And we heard also users, if you want, or railway actors from different sectors, from equipment manufacturers all the way to network operators. So really a wide variety of participation. And certainly our work is not only about conferences and about that conference. We continue working together. We are working together. Actually, Europe's rail is helping to deliver the user requirements and facilitate the introduction of Galileo and EGNOS in the RTMS within the system pillar. There are challenges ahead. You've mentioned those as well. Certainly, the safety of life component is a very important one. And there are as well encouraging elements or encouraging aspects. We have introduced space technologies, and in particular EGNOS positioning into the aviation domain, which is one where the safety of life is important. I know that railway and aircraft are not the same thing. There are particular challenges to one and the other sector, but the principle of having this space in the safety of life loop, I think this one is proven through the aviation domain. Then we need to continue working, and we need to continue working to solve the particular challenges that we face in rail. In particular, on our side, we are working actively on what are the possibilities to deliver a service demonstrator and I think that would have a lot of value. Because once you can demonstrate something, once you can do it, touch it, feel it, then certainly the adoption becomes much easier. So certainly still a lot of work to be done, but as well a lot of ambition towards the future.
Great, thanks for that. Well, we certainly plan that satellite positioning will be part of the next TSI set, so let's keep up the good work there. Arian, back to you. And of course, in RailNet Europe, you're also, I think, through ProRail, very much involved in Flagship Project 1, our project on traffic management. How do you see the work between RNE and the JU on the whole area of FP1? And of course, optimization of traffic management is also going to be something that is vitally important as part of the Commission's capacity management proposal. So we're trying to wring more out of the network. We're trying to make train paths better. We're trying to make capacity available much closer to on demand, certainly for freight operators. Is the work between the JU and RNE going to help us deliver that?
Yes, that's the short answer. Yeah. No, I think we're both aligned and have the same goal. So especially when you talk about the freight, we have to do it also on the last mile. Regarding to capacity on shunting yards and everything else. So I think yes, and RNE is also involved in Flagship 1. So, but I think there has to be something done about the alignment together. But we are coming from a different background also at RNE. So we are also delivering services to all parties, and the same we are doing right here. So there is something to do in alignment in the goals and what we have to achieve for the coming period. And I think that's not going to be a problem. But we have to keep in close contact in the work we are doing together.
And how do we manage the inevitable issue that, of course, you and the other members of RNE are busy trying to deploy technologies now, but at the same time, the JU is busy developing the technologies of the future?
Yeah.
I mean, have we got that sufficiently aligned, or is there nothing we can do except make sure we're all aware of the fact that things keep evolving?
Yeah, I think that's the faith we have to do together. It's something we are always have to combine modernization in our landscape due to legacy systems and what we have to do for innovations to adopt in the things we do for the future. So. It has to go hand in hand, and you can't. It's always an open heart surgery, I guess. So the operations need to be going. You have to be future ready, and sometimes that's really difficult. So the implementation, the FRMCS we talked about this morning. When you see all the deadlines we have to come across in the coming years, and also implementing ERTMS, and also implementing the modernization in the landscape for capacity management and traffic management and train control system. And so it's a lot coming to all operators in Europe and IMs. So so we have to keep that aligned, and sometimes make some choices which could hurt.
Yeah, so the only way around it is to be transparent as to what the choices are and give people as much notice as possible so it doesn't hurt too much.
Too much, okay. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, okay, thanks for that. I'm going to ask Joseph a question now, but just to wake everybody up, of course, this is supposed to be an interactive session, so this is also your chance to grill everybody and ensure that not only the JU, but the agency and our satellite colleagues and even Cesar make the railways better for you. So please have some questions ready for a minute. But firstly, Joseph, back to you. One important project that the JU is working on is trying to address one of the open points we have in terms of the specification of the loading gauge for vehicles, and in particular the dynamic loading gauge, where we don't know simply from static data in the RINF whether trains can really cross particular bridges. So we have a so-called In-Bridge for EU project that's trying to address bridge dynamics. I mean, how valuable is this kind of project to the work of the agency, and what more can we be doing to develop this kind of collaboration?
Well, this is an absolutely perfect example, because we are, in our role as authorizing entity, often confronted with certain positions by national authorities, and there we have to clearly avoid national approaches, which will be very difficult to handle for manufacturers. The real importance of the scientific approach is that we have an actual factual basis, because if we have to rely on guesswork, or if we have to rely on some experiments, then firstly, it's a very long and cumbersome process, but we also don't provide the necessary stability in terms of the requirements an applicant has to meet. So that coverage of the dynamic loading gauge is absolutely essential, specifically as in rail, we are always accommodating long life assets. And some of the bridges that we are talking about are from the 19th and middle of the 19th century even. So the more it becomes important to have a proper scientific basis for it.
Great, thanks. Well, we of course look forward to the Bridge for EU, whatever it's in Bridge for EU. We look forward to it delivering results because that will.
Bridge and not breach.
Yeah, I can't speak English anymore. Been here too long. Indeed. So are there any questions for our panelists? As I say, now is your chance to really probe to make sure that these interactions and synergies are actually happening and not just something we like to talk about in the meeting. You're all very synergistic today then. Aaron, from your perspective, because I mean, you're still a member as well, are you seeing everything that you think should be happening in terms of synergies, or are there areas you would like to see us develop more? I mean, actually, particularly with the ICT stuff you're working on, should we be using the high performance computing JU, for example, to see what more we can do in terms of optimizing the European system, or do you have other ideas?
Like I said, I think we have a lot of ideas all together, but what we really need to do is well, to make the implementation of all the new innovations we are doing together adoptable for all countries. So to prioritize in all the big system changes we are making, from the capacity management and the regulations that are coming from Europe now. As I said before, ERTMS, the FRMCS implementation in Europe. We are currently at ProRail working on our modernization in the landscape of TMS, so in the traffic management system part, but also in TCS. So it's a lot to absorb, and any new technology can help to make more speed. So we are looking also at the AI part, for example. What that can do in the capacity management department, or what that can do in the traffic management system department. So maybe that's something we need to dive into a little bit more.
Yeah, thanks. And I think that last point on AI shows the need to keep our work programme under constant review, because indeed, even since we wrote the programme, I think it's jumped much more to the fore and its possibilities have become rapidly apparent. So that's clearly something we need to pick up more of in the future Europe's Rail programme as well.
Yeah. And maybe
Very
we could
good.
write a programme from AI.
Yes. Don't tell DGHR, they might shut down half of DGRTD if we do that. But I'm sure it will come, actually. There was some former head of the British Civil Service who I think reckoned that 2/3 of civil service posts would disappear to AI in the next 20 years. So it's coming.
Yeah.
Very good. Okay, but I think we now need to move on. So many thanks to all our panelists. And of course, we look forward to continuing to work with all of you. And we...
There is a question.
There is a question now.
It's not for the panelists.
Sorry, what's the question?
I can reply.
Can't.
So there is so thanks a lot also from my side for all the panelists. There is a question that is not really for you, but then I can read and reply directly. So what about more concrete plans to decarbonize the non-electrical trucks? I see very little effort for this goal. Indeed, maybe today we didn't discuss it a lot, but we are also doing work of synergies, if you want, of Europe's Rail, also with, for example, clean hydrogen. And in this way, it's the similar synergies that Andrea Gentili was explaining before, meaning that we have synergies at program level. So we're expecting that the output of the research work that Clean Hydrogen Joint Undertaking is doing And also another partnership that is not a joint undertaking, which is the battery partnership, will actually respond to the requirements that we provided to them that are embedded in their work program. And if the successful results for the project that they have launched a couple of years ago or 1 year ago is successful, then we will integrate those outputs inside our future flagship project demonstrations. So either for the demonstration in 27 or the demonstration in 2030. So there is also work and synergies collaboration in that regard. Miroslav?
May I add something in my presentation, which will follow? I have two proposals related to this decarbonization on the non-electrified line. So if you are waiting for my presentation, you will see my SRG proposals.
Great, thanks for that, Miroslav. Of course, the other part of the answer, and we'll hear Miroslav's answer in a minute, but the other part of the answer is that the Commission, of course, would like to increase the electrified network. So the first thing we're doing is actually trying to build out the electrification further across Europe. So that's the easiest way of doing it. But then, of course, we look to battery and hydrogen for the rest. Okay, but many thanks for that. And we now... sorry, we've got lots of questions now. Go on.
Sorry. I would like to have a question on, let's say, EUSPA and CESAR. It's internal dynamic, high internal dynamic in digitalization. How do you deal with this process? Because we in the rail sector, I mean, we have been living for decades in very stable environment. And now with digitalization that you need upgrades every, let's say, second day, maybe. This is something what is completely a brand new feature, and we don't know how to deal with it. So how, because definitely this digitalization brings the same challenges also into your sector. So how challenging it is, and how do you are somehow managing this issue? Thank you. And sorry for being rather theoretical.
It's a very good question, though, and of course it causes immense problems in rail. So indeed, Andreas, Rodrigo, how do we manage it elsewhere?
Quick, I will be quick, and Rodrigo, you follow, please. I would say digitalization is, of course, a challenge, but it's also a huge opportunity. And I think listening to you for the last hour or so, we have the same features. We are highly fragmented. We have a workforce issue. We have a capacity issue. There are more and more planes and other drones and air taxis and high airspace operations. There are more and more vehicles in the air. So the only way we can do this is via higher level of automation, where we need machine learning, where we need artificial intelligence coming in, and we are doing this in a safety critical infrastructure. So in a real-time environment. So data is crucial and data management is crucial, but we have to absolutely make sure it is safe. And therefore, I guess like you and Rail, we are working very closely with the Aviation Safety Agency, which is a safety regulator, and we are making sure that we are pushing innovation, and we are getting there. That's an opportunity for us, but to make it safe. So we have a lot of projects already on artificial intelligence, and really which different levels of automation, which is rather, and this human machine teaming, that it's really a team built with a controller still sitting in a center and overseeing and supervising it, but where more and more routine tasks are taking away from us, the human beings, and left to the algorithms and the machine to machine communication, which is then for us. And there, Rodrigo, we need you also, the issue of air to ground connectivity, and there we need satellites, and we will also work together with you. So I could go on and further, but I would say it is definitely a challenge, but it's also a big opportunity we need to seize, because we have the capacity, the environment, and the workforce issue. Thank you.
Thank you. I mean, also from my side, I fully agree with what Andreas just said. I mean, we see digitalization as both a challenge and an opportunity. Maybe three different angles in which we tackle. First, space is somehow an enabler for digitalization, because the capability that satellite communication gives in addition to terrestrial communication, is very important. It gives worldwide access. It gives broadband capability. It gives also a resilience element, which is crucial, in particular in situations of natural or human-made disaster. So I think this is very important. Space is somehow an enabler for digitalization, but it's also suffering digitalization in many ways. And look at our Earth observation system. We are generating 16 terabytes of data every day, 16 terabytes of pictures of Earth every day. The management of this data is a real challenge. Certainly, we cannot put that data aside, but that would not reap the benefits of space. So data processing through artificial intelligence, etc., is becoming more and more a crucial area. The third element where digitalization is crucial is because it's bringing new threats. I normally say, I mean, when we started on the space business and protecting the space systems 10 years ago, it was a lot about physical security. So it was about putting the computers in the right room and closing the sites and putting the gates and the fences, etc. Today is very, very little about that. Today is everything about cyber securing the systems. And this is a challenge that comes with digitalization, but digitalization brings as well solutions, because the security monitoring you can do today, correlation rules, network monitoring, etc., is completely different than what was possible 10 years ago. And yeah, I mean, we are embracing it. There's no way, and there is no option of turning our back to it. I mean, we'll just become old dinosaurs. We have to take it and move ahead, because it is an opportunity.
Yeah, so we're back to the issue of cybersecurity, which I guess, again, is one on which we have lots of things we must share, in fact, albeit with the benefit also of ENISA, which is another agency that we can probably invite to this gathering in the future. Okay, many thanks for that. Any further questions? And this time I don't see any. So many thanks to everybody. Of course, we will, as I said before, look forward to our continuing collaboration, but thanks for your time with us this afternoon. And we now move to a different kind of synergy, but equally important, and that, of course, is the synergies with our member states. Of course, the infrastructure managers are all of them very closely associated with our member states, but they're not the only link we need to have with the member states. We also need to join up the research programs with national research programs, with national research teams, etc. And for this reason, we have within the JU the States Representatives Group, ably chaired by Miroslav, who has been with us here and will introduce us to the SRG's latest views. Miroslav.
Thank you, Keir, for giving me the time for introducing the SRG, not introducing as a group, because all participants knows what's SRG about. But I start with a question. How are the member states involved in the work of SRG? In particular, how actively they participate in the preparation of the position and suggestions for the meetings, and then in the SRG meeting itself? We can talk about the three groups of member states. About 7 member states representatives that participates regularly, physically or remotely, in meetings are active in discussions and proposals at the meetings. You can see on the map, not this, please. Yeah, no, come back to the information only. There are the Austria, Albania, Czech Republic, Germany, France, Netherlands, and Denmark, while those that participates only occasionally and are not very active at meetings. There are different member states from different areas, regions of Europe: Portugal, Spain, Italy, Sweden, Finland, Slovakia, Turkey, and other countries, Baltic states. They are following by Hungary, Romania, Bulgaria, Greece, and Ireland are mostly silent and do not attend the majority of the SRG meetings. Norway and Switzerland, they have the special or specific status within DJU. They share information with the SRG, but they are not actively attending the meetings. And we have other countries like Israel, for instance, Malta and Cyprus. Israel is very specific. They are the member of the States Representatives Group, but not working very actively. And Malta and Cyprus, they are not involved in the activities of the SRG because they have no railway system in their territory. So it's in fact not interesting for them. So in this context, you can see on the maps, next slide, please, on the example of the digital automated coupler, how different and fragmented the member states group already is. You can see from the functional level of the digital automated coupler, you can see different groupment of member states, which are in green, the Central European part, which has the quite similar operational rules for operating the freight transport. In comparison with the Balkan, which has quite nothing integrated together, no operational rules. And there is the Spain, France, Italy, which have very different rules. It is caused by the gauge difference from Spain to France, etc. So interoperability is not in place there. In comparison to the geographical distribution, is different, because you can see that this part of the distribution is based on the 10T network, which is integral part of the transport system in Europe, and rail freight corridors. So you can see that there is different groupment of member states with different business interests, and those two groupments are not consistent. It means there are gaps and overlaps in one. Because for some member states, both groups are interesting. For some, no group is interesting. So we can, on this example, I would like to show you on the next slides how the SRG is preparing the big challenge, new perspectives. And you can see on this example for the new perspectives, in the entire spectrum of the bodies dealing with the research innovation in the Europe's rail, you can see that every part of the JU is working on their own principles and own topics, but there is no integration between them, or very, very low integration. What's the role of SRG in this? SRG is the platform for presentation the member states' strategies, member states' visions, and on the other hand, coordination and cooperation. And this is on the left side of this schema. You can see the information, and on the right hand side you can see the decision. And the solution is a combination of both. And what is the role of, or wish or challenge of the member state is to coordinate and prepare the cooperation between all bodies, like the scientific steering board, system pillar, innovation pillar, and of course also the executive director and governing board. It's not the role we see to give you some management or to manage your work. but to advise what's from member states' view is important to be provided. Based on this diagram, we decided to start the internal discussion within the members of our group, how we can select or first to create the list of priorities which are for member states important, and then select the priority for each in the priority 1, 2, 3, etc. This meeting is proposed for early February, and we would like to go to the final step, which is, from our view, a small revision of the Single Basic Act. But it's the comment. Here, be sure that it's not the good way. We already discussed it, and it's not the way. But what we can change is the internal rules of procedures which are needed, and that is the topic we would like to express, that there is a challenge to restructure or rebalance all the work by the SRG. Why? Because we would like to bring the opinion to everything what we feel from the member states level as the most important. Not only waiting for some opinion asked by the executive director or governing board, but to give you the opinion at any time if we feel it's important. So go back, next slide, please. You can see this on this schema for the digital automated coupler. In principle, you can see here the most important role and positions of the part of the group in which something is delivered or prepared on the one hand, and on the other hand, you can see how we can build the opinion. It's not very easy to present now in a very short time, but you can see that there is the challenge we would like to implement in our work as soon as possible, because it will increase the decision-making process, speed up, and of course also to have it much efficient and more transparent for the members of the governing board and member states, because member states are the authorities, or member states are there for implementation of any topic. It not only DAC, it's for ATO, FRMCS, and other important topics. So the same principle we would like to apply in our work, and giving you advice for your final decision, because you are here as a governing board and executive director and the staff to make the final decision. We are here for giving you an advice, and we would be more active in giving advice than before. But for that, we need to have the groups of member states with the interest, because there was in the morning session we discussed the Hyperloop. Hyperloop is one of the topic in which the member states are not unique, and that's why for those who are interested in the Hyperloop development, they can create an internal subgroup for the member states interested in this. But on the other hand, the other member states can give the opposite view, or something like the negative opinion. But we need to discuss both, not only the positives but also the negatives. So this is the principle I would like to share with the entire community here, entire JU. Next slide, please. And here is the proposal for the some new work streams, as was mentioned, the new environmental friendly items, and this is one to establish the new concept of energy supply for rail, using the initial studies on modular nuclear reactors, because this is the way how we can make the energy supply independent of the public energy sources and make the rail sector not so dependent to the market prices of energy. Using that concept, what we can do then, we can use this independent power supply system also for the regional lines, which will cover when we produce more energy than is spent on the electrified lines, to store it in the batteries or producing the green hydrogen and power the regional lines with low density of traffic. So this is a proposal for discussion. It's not the final concept, but this is working on different level in Switzerland, for instance. We were imposed by Switzerland because they have their own system for electricity power in Switzerland for rail based on the water power plants, not the nuclear. But there is not applicable everywhere in the same manner, but could be used as an example how efficiently Switzerland is working with this energy supply system. And similarly, it works in Austria, not fully 100%, but a part of the rail energy supply is covered by the water power plant. So, and related to that is the methodology for decarbonization of the non-electrified lines, especially in cross-border regions. It means how to integrate these lines in one concept, fully interoperable. So this is the proposal which we offer to think about for the governing board and the JU staff, to think if there is the place for the call for projects building this methodology and dealing with this new power supply concept. Next slide, please. And now is the perspective of cooperation. As it was mentioned, SRG would like to cooperate with different JUs and agencies on the principle to exchange and share information and prepare the opinion as soon as possible after new technologies are thinking about or developed in the other JUs. So the principally CESAR, clean hydrogen, clean aviation, Euro HPC, there are the JUs which we feel that would be a best or the first partners for the SRG. Also the SRG in this, of course, not the members of the JUs, but the SRG groups there for exchange the information. And there are on the other hand, there are the agencies. EUSPA, you have here ESA or ERA, it's the part already, and ENISA for the cybersecurity and this topics. And on the other hand, also ERTICO as an intelligent transport system groupment. And we need to integrate also rail to the intelligent transport system principles. Next slide, please. And coming from that perspective, we are discussing also the cooperation with other partners which are not at the moment the members of the SRG. And why this? This is the principle based on the cooperation with or the partnership within Horizon Europe is the Moldova, Serbia, Armenia, Georgia, and Ukraine, which are associated countries to Horizon Europe. And we have, on the other hand, also, for instance, Morocco. Why Morocco, you can ask? because there is a great development of rail system, especially the high speed, and we can give the opportunity for our industry to participate in development and discussing with the partners in Morocco how their needs and what they can request from the European rail supply industry, and of course also from operational community, because they are using now the concept developed by SNCF. So this is the example how the cooperation and coordination can be used also outside Europe in one part. New countries who access the Horizon Europe is Canada and New Zealand. We can also monitor these activities there in those countries, because they could find some new products, new research, new innovations which can be applicable in Europe with after some changes. Because, for instance, we have not the Japan, for instance, is the good example. Based on the EU-Japan trade agreement, we can also share the information, but the rail system in Japan is not simply applicable in Europe. It needs some changes. In some principles, interoperability and so on is not done in European scope. So we need to also monitor the development in Japan, in South Korea, and of course also in the US. US is now mentioned as a cooperation with Transport Research Board, which is a partner at the moment for a discussion or exchanged information. So the member states group can collect the information and give also some examples, some motivation for the governing board members, for the funding members and the JU to focus on something which seems to be interesting or important for the European rail system. Next slide. It was also already announced that there was the election of the vice chairperson in the SRG. So Adnan Yelin from Denmark was successfully elected in our last meeting. So we have the full members of the governance of this SRG, and then we can switch to the last part, and is the member states reporting, which is new in our work, is reporting on the synergies in research and innovation projects on member states level. We send based on the JU template, we distributed the questionnaires, and you can see on the next slide and later on the results of the questionnaire. The member states marked by green stars, they've sent all the questionnaires or the major part of the questionnaire. The yellow marked, they declared something which is not fully in line with the questionnaire, but for instance, they declared that there are some or no activity at the moment, or they are working on it, etc. The red one is that the member states didn't respond now. So we will repeat this questionnaire, send it again to ask all other member states to fill in the questionnaire. You can see the general summary. And next slide, please. You can see the consolidated version. I would like to thank a lot the colleagues from the JU staff to help me for making this consolidated version. It's based on the 7 countries which sent the questionnaires, and you can see that there are here some examples. For instance, from Czech Republic, Germany, and Austria, I think, if it's included. So in those countries we found out the national programs for research and innovation in transport, or specifically rail transport. And later on, you can see, next slide, the dedicated projects, which are related to the flagship areas, flagship projects on the national level. You can see here the codes of projects from Czech Republic and Germany, which are linked to the Europe's rail activities in this field. So you can find the different view on the national level how the projects on dedicated topics is done. So in principle, next slide, please. You can see here the other flagship projects 3, 4, and 5, and you can see this project on national level. There is in the database we have at the moment access to those projects, and after the meeting, if you have the interest, we can send you the link to the database of those projects in Germany, Czech Republic, Austria, or from those countries, to check it, to read, and to make your own view on the synergies or contributing to the European projects on the national level. So I think this is very good example how we can share the knowledge and about the research and innovation projects in different member states, and to make a summary of that, we can also think about what is the important part to be included in next annual or multi-annual work plans. Because on some topics you can find in the database that would be a potential candidate for the European project, which is not now linked to any activity in Europe's rail, but could be a candidate to be also included in the project proposals in the next calls. And at the final end, it may help us to think about a new content of the framework research and innovation program for the next period. So it's we would like to start in the SRG group about the new framework program with some ideas which we can share with the Commission together when preparing the next framework program. Maybe is the great challenge, is the big work, maybe more than necessary challenging, but I think we can help the community to work efficiently and for the future also in favor of rail transport. Thank you so much.
Many thanks, Miroslav. I mean, I think the last set of slides about the interaction with member states are particularly interesting. And of course, this is where we would really like to see the SRG develop much more to actually ensure member states are fully aware of what we're doing and align their programs with the JU program. But I mean, this list you've provided, I'm sure the individual flagship projects, well, I hope they're aware of the work that's going on already, but if not, it will be a very good source for them. I mean, on the earlier part, I was looking slightly skeptical, I think, because we have to be careful that, of course, we need close interaction with the member states, but it's not the job of the state representative group itself to establish transport policy. So I think what we need there is the SRG working, I mean, with the working groups in the railway agency, with the NSAs, where member states are represented, with your member state risk representatives, so that you understand what the policy priorities are and ensure that that joins up. I don't think it's helpful if the SRG tries to shadow all of the work that the other groups are doing, and you won't have the resource to do it anyway. So it's simply to make sure that there is alignment between the different bits of member states. I mean, as I was saying of the infrastructure managers earlier, it's obviously even truer within member states that there are a number of different actors interacting with the programs at different places, and it's vital that we keep them all joined up. But I think we're very grateful for some of the work you're doing, and of course we will continue to work closely with the SRG. I don't know if there are any questions for Miroslav. Yeah. Sorry.
No problem. Yeah, thank you, Miroslav. Very appreciated your news, let me say. Did I understand you right, that SLG is offering a work group or subgroup for DAC, for example?
Yes,
Okay.
but we need first to think which member states have the interest to work in different layers of the DAC development, because the member states has not the same interest.
But to be very clear on this, and I mean here, we do not want different solutions for different parts of Europe. I mean, we have a single European railway area. So
here, it's not about the different solutions. It's the different priority for implementing that common solution for the member states, because they have different strategies.
Yeah, but as I say, still, this is transport policy. It's not for the SRG. I mean, it is important that the member states are involved with this, and they are involved in the European DAC Delivery Programme, which we will hear about from Mark Topal in a minute. But I think we have to make sure we don't confuse the roles of different bodies in this. Ralph, back to you.
Well, Can I? Thank you very much. My name is Petr Indra. I'm from ČD Cargo, and I would only like to appreciate Miroslav for the SRG focus on the electricity issue, because it seems to me that sometimes we forget that by moving 30, 50, or maybe doubling the volumes of goods from the diesel road to rail, we will need almost, I know that it will be less, but almost that much electricity for this. So thank you. It's among other things. Thanks.
Yeah, and it's a good example of something that should be a collaborative or a synergistic project. I mean, clearly, whether we're doing nuclear, which may be popular in some member states but not others, or whether we're doing renewables, where I think, again, there are lots of ideas as to how we integrate. I mean, clearly, bringing the railways together with in this case, our energy colleagues would be very important. You've simulated other comments, though, so I have Johannes and Mark online, please. I think Johannes was first, probably.
Cannot hear you, Johannes. Cannot hear you, Johannes. Switch to Mark when you're trying to solve your IT issue.
No. Now
it's
I'm
gone.
Yeah,
we can hear you.
You had to let me in, opening my mic. Just one point. Of course, it's very important, Miroslav, that we involve also the member states. What I missed in your quite complicated picture is the EDDP, and I think Mark will also come onto this in a minute. So I think we really need to understand and cooperate how all the activities, and this is EDDP as well, can work together to, in the end, find this common solution for the DAC and FTFTO.
Yeah, thanks for that. I think we fully agree. Mark.
Yeah, just coming back to the point you already referred to, Kier. Of course, we are aiming to have a single European solution here, so there will be no such thing like technical solutions on different member state level. This doesn't make any sense. I'm wondering somehow, and maybe we'll have time, Miroslav, to discuss this in one of the upcoming meetings in the bilateral basis, what is really meant by these different layers. So if it's, let's say that it's referring to different levels of, let's say, applications, additional applications, of course, this will be possible, but there will be a basic system, which is the general basic system of the DAC system, of the European DAC system. And of course, this needs to be fully interoperable and will be a single system. Otherwise, we will completely fail what we aim to go for. And of course, when it comes to migration, we will find solutions. We have to find solutions which will be suitable and feasible for all partners and all regions in Europe. And we are very much aware of this fact that this needs further investigation, further development, and of course, further coordination with all of you. And we're working on that. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for that, Mark. And just to advertise here as well, I mean, this was something we've discussed with the EDDP team, but we've now asked the rail directors in each member state to nominate a contact point in the ministries for DAC so that we can ensure we're getting inputs from the sort of the member state level on how each member state sees DAC as we develop this process. Okay, Miroslav, do you want to come back? And then I think we move on to DAC and to Mark. But
yes, I fully agree with this bilateral discussion, but not only with me as a chairperson, but also with some colleagues which are really active in this topics and have a different view based on the national discussion. It's not the SRG members who are dealing with these topics, but there is discussion internally. For instance, in Germany, at the Ministry of Transport, and the representatives, they are discussing internally, and the position they gave is the real position of the member states. So it's not the SRG position, it's the member state position. Similarly is in Czech Republic. I'm not talking about the from my perspective, because I have in some areas a different opinion, but it's the official statement of the Ministry of Transport for this, for instance, in DAC. And similarly is FRMCS or ATO or other topics. And we would like to create the structured list of priorities for our group.
Yeah, well, as I say, I mean, I think with DAC, I mean, we have the EDDP, and if you join up directly with the work of that will be helpful. For other issues, I mean, we will have the deployment group in future, and that may be the best place to channel some of this work. But I am, as I say, concerned that what is vital is that what we get through SRG reflects the position of transport ministries as well as research interests, etc. And I'm sure for some members of the group that is the case at the moment, but I think we need to work with you to make sure it is representative of everybody. And as I say, also that it doesn't duplicate work streams going on within ERA, within the risk, etc. Because I mean, that's clearly in nobody's interest. All our resources are limited.
Regarding risk, I already talked to you what's our perspective, because we are a very inconsistent group. They are not the same level of interest of the nominated members of the group. So that's why you are right that we are not here for representing the member state's position on something, but we need to coordinate our positions and if necessary to help the working groups here within Europe's rail to make a coordination way to the topic.
Yeah. No, well, look, we will discuss some of this bilaterally. I mean, it's important, but it's not necessarily the interest of everybody here. So many thanks for that presentation. Unless there are further questions, I think we can move on. And Mark is already sitting waiting, so we can move straight into the presentation from Javier and Mark, in fact, of the DAC Delivery Programme, which, as you all know, is one of the flagships in reality of the JU at the moment, working on the important and practically quite difficult task of making sure we get a digital automated coupling to assure the future of our freight, and particularly our single wagon freight system in the EU. So I don't know, Javier or Mark, who is starting, but the floor is to you anyway.
Yep, for the sake of time, Kier, I think it should be already Mark taking the floor, so please go ahead. Yeah.
Thank you, Javier. Thank you, Kier. Actually, I would love to have I would love to have to be with you right now in Brussels in the meeting, but my calendar simply did not allow this this time. I'm sorry for that. Anyhow, still I think it's a great opportunity we're having here to give you an overview where we are with this initiative and what are the major challenges and how we plan to finally overcome them, of course, together with the JU, with all the partners. Still, I want to start with a very general slide. Maybe we can have the next slide, or the first one actually. Once again, underlining on a very general level, high level, where we are. So the challenges of EU rail freight, of course, is the main part, the core of everything is competitiveness. We still know that we need to do better when it comes to finally provide services and products for our customer. They need something different. They need to, of course, see the products being in a more reliable manner. Time is an issue, as you know, flexibility is an issue. And of course, we have still a lot of homework to be done in terms of cost efficiency. And not to mention that capacity is one of the key issues we are facing. On the other hand, we want to see growth. There is a plan, not only coming from the Green Deal, there are different other strategies pointing directly into that direction. We want to see growth for rail freight. So at the moment, we have a very, very difficult situation when it comes to competitiveness. On the other hand, we want to see growth. This is the principle of everything, where we say we need to transform the system. We need to think this in a different way. We cannot prolong doing what we did for 182 or 190, 200 years. We need to see a change here. And the next slide, and there you see it's already, you may have seen it already a couple of times, because I love this slide and bring it quite often. And you can see here it's written 182 years of screw coupling. Although the screw coupling started in 1840, this means this slide is almost 2 years old already. So we are close to say it's 184 years of screw coupling. And you see there's telecommunications in the center line here, or above the timeline. And there was, of course, the beginning of everything in 1863. Then there was a lot of years, decades, where there were slight changes, minor innovation, or even development of technology. I think somewhere in the 60s, 70s, stepwise, we were able to get rid of operators. So we finally could direct connect phone from one person to another phone, to another person. And then suddenly it became mobile. So there was the new world of mobile communications. And no one ever thought at this time that we will use this phone for even more than telecommunication. And then suddenly it became digital. And after that, so many different applications became possible. And then everything changed. Then it was not a phone anymore. It was a device. We called it smartphone, or still do that, but it's much more than being a smartphone, as you all know. Compared to that, in our business, it's 184 years the same. We still do screw coupling. We always did that. We know how to do it, but it's not changing anything here. So on the next slide, you see that the digital automatic coupler could, will be, or simply is a key enabler of this transformation we need. In terms of capacity, in terms of productivity, in terms of quality, to various aspects of quality, and of course safety, we can reduce time, we can increase utilization of assets, of different, let's say, shunting yards or whatever. Of course, it's the basis for further automation of procedures, and it's enabling a lot of various applications, as the smartphone is doing, or did, or showcased somehow, as I just presented. And of course, it's the basis of making rail freight digital. But on the next slide, please. And this is, I always start with that slide, or in many cases, many occasions, I simply want to underline this, as there are so many different positions or opinions, people being involved or slightly involved, and some think, okay, these guys, they simply want to test a new technology, and they love technology, they're technocrats or whatever, but they have no idea about operations. No, This is different. This is not coming from the outside. It's not coming from, sorry to say so here, any Brussels initiative from, let's say, primary being driven by regulation ideas or whatever. So it's coming from the sector itself. It's coming from the operators saying we need to do better. We need to find solutions. And of course, we are not naive. There are limits, and we know within these limits, and there are preconditions, as here they are listed. And of course, there will be no investment program without having achieved these preconditions. Of course, they are highly ambitious, but still it's possible to step by step achieve them. So this is somehow also giving us orientation for our current work program. So this is why it's so important to start with that slide. So what needs to be done? The first point is we need to have a harmonized single European DAC system, as already discussed. So funny that we discussed this quite some 5-10 minutes ago, and it's number one point on this slide here. The technology needs to meet all essential requirements, and not only referring to those essential requirements as defined in the interoperability directive in general, so going far beyond that. So this means in particular in the area of RAMs, reliability, maintainability, availability, safety, security, of course, this needs to be proven with large-scale demonstrations. So not only with PowerPoint slides, or we try to do this in a laboratory condition. No, of course, this needs to be proven with demonstrations. So we need to be sure about that. We need to see that this technology is reliable. If we don't see that, we cannot invest into that. So we are not stupid guys here, of course. The operational functionalities and use cases, of course, they need to bring the expected benefits, as we have calculated then in the various CBAs. And this needs also to be proven through large demonstrations, including all the safety aspects, etc. We cannot risk anything here, that we say, okay, we invested, I don't know, 250 million euro as ÖBB, for example, and then, sorry, return of investment is different than expected. It's only bringing 10 million of benefit and there is no funding. Okay, 240 million, done. No, we're not going to do that. There is a possibility that we can do it and that it can be, that's achievable. We know that already. So that's somehow, once again, the framework for our working program for the upcoming years. Fourth point is that, of course, we need to have a positive CBA in terms of the socioeconomics. We already know that this is possible somehow, but also we need to find a way to have a positive CBA on a company level. And we know that no one of us, especially when it comes to freight business, can invest with a 30-35 years of return of investment. That's not going to happen. That's simply not how this business works. So this is why we need to generate a positive business case, let's say in a maximum of something like a 10 years perspective. We know that. We need to find a way to get this done. And fast lane authorization procedures. We cannot expect that all the 300, maybe 400,000 wagons and 20,000 locos, whatever in Europe, will simply file type by type, loco by loco, some applications at error. And then we say, okay, you are 5,809, you have to wait another 222 years. No, that's not going to happen. Of course, it needs to be simplified. We need to now discuss this, and this is what we are doing, and find ways how this procedure can work. And of course, this needs to be considered from the very beginning when developing this technology, when developing the system architecture of this technology. Once again, we are, as a lot of people are involved in this, these are not stupid guys. They know how to do that. And of course, they have not for every question an answer at the moment, but we know these points in detail. And last but not least, of course, we need to have and see a sound migration plan to be set, to be here, to be in place, guaranteeing that we do this deployment in more or less simultaneous manner. Otherwise, we will risk having this lack of interoperability. And of course, this will have to be based on different local, regional, and company-wide situations, as this cannot be one-size-fits-all strategy, cannot be successful here. And this includes also having solutions, defining solutions for staff training, for whatever is needed in terms of adaptation, infrastructure, and IT, etc., etc. So that's what we will have to deliver before we will deploy this technology. And I think whenever I present this slide, almost everyone says, okay, if you will be successful with all of that, I'm in. And I say the same. We as ÖBB, as a company, we will be in only in case we will be successful in overcoming all of these open points and finding solutions for them. Do we believe that's possible? Yes. Is it a challenge? Is it ambitious? Yes. Do we like challenges? Maybe partly, maybe not that much. It's not important if we like it. It's important that we need to do it, as we don't see any other option for the future of the European rail freight system. On the next slide, and you know, I pretty much, I'm sure that you know all about this. So what are the different use cases and functionalities? So I'm not going into details, and I guess the slides will be sent to everyone anyway, but just to pick up some of them. So you know, automated coupling and uncoupling. There is the option of doing it manual uncoupling, that's the type 4, but also there is the option then to do it with automated uncoupling, that's then the type 5. This is all part of the coupling procedure, but it's much more than that. So it's about the train composition, it's about brake tests, automatic brake test. It's about the train integrity function to be the basis for enabling ETCS level 3 moving block or whatever will be the system then using that. And of course, there is much more use cases. Once you have data and energy on your train, on your freight wagons, it will be a new era. It will be a new period, and it will be a transformation for rail freight. The DAC basic package, it's the next slide. So this is what we are aiming to do right now. Why are we doing that? So in the flagship project 5, which is the project, you know, it's the flagship project where we deal with the DAC. We came to the conclusion we need to be more focused. As time is running, we're running out of time, and we cannot deal with all of them. So we need to form a package which we call the basic package, which will be still giving us enough benefit in order to compare to what we expect will be the efforts and the costs for that. So there is a minimum level of benefit we need to go for, and this is pretty much this package. And this will be the basis for the demonstrator trains and for the pre-deployment trains, as we need to prove this. And of course, in addition, it's possible to even work on other additional functionalities and to solve other design principles like upgradability, modularity, etc. And they could be added at the later stage then for the full deployment, as long as interoperability and performance of this basic system will of course be maintained. So this is the way how we separated this, and I think it makes sense as we now have a real focused agenda for the upcoming 3 years in flagship project 5. Of course, that's subject, and I have to say this clearly, of the proceedings still to be done in terms of amendment procedures, etc. So it's not formalized. It's an idea. It has been agreed as, let's say, as a consortium in FP5 and in the European DAC Delivery Programme as being the right move. But of course, it's subject to be confirmed with the formal amendment procedure of the flagship project 5. So we go for a DAC coupler system, including energy and data. We go for the train composition and wagon order detection, for the automated brake test, for train integrity and train length determination, and of course for the automated uncoupling, and of course the push button, etc., the prevent coupling function. That's all of that is included there. And it's not that there is no other application possible, as of course there will be standard possibilities and interfaces to do even more. But as for now, we focus on that. We have to focus on that. Otherwise, we will lose further time. This brings me to the next slide, which is the general master plan 01 as agreed in June 23. There you see on the left side, you see the technology development in flagship project 5, subject to be a little bit prolonged until, let's say, the end of 26. As this has a clear focus, as just mentioned, for this basic package. And in parallel, we need to work within the EDTP on the migration plan, and we are doing this. So based on the already existing migration scenarios, it's now to build up this plan. I will later on the next slide go into the details of that. And what is imperative that we start thinking and designing, and you see it's pretty much in the middle, the pilot deployment trains or pre-deployment trains. Something like 100 trains operating all over Europe in different regions under different real operational conditions, simply to prove and maybe to learn from, let's say, at the last cycle of iterations, but to prove reliability, to prove functionality, to prove performance of the DAC system, not only the coupler, of the system, of this package, and to then say, yes, it's working. And there will be a deadline, there will be a point of no return, something like end of 27, maybe 28, where we say, and now we are ready to go for it. As there will be then the huge investments. Until then, we are facing somehow more or less a project being an R&D project, or it's an R&D phase. But on the right side, you see it's the deployment. And this makes the DAC project or the DAC initiative so challenging, that we do pretty much R&D, or the final steps of developing and testing this technology and putting it together with other applications. The same time, we already start discussing and preparing for deployment. We need to do that because there is no time, otherwise we'll lose another 10 years. But it's sometimes different or difficult to follow these different discussions. Right now, we need to get it done in terms of proving it when it comes to the technology, when it comes to Flagship Project 5, of course. It's not yet finalized here. We have not yet made the decision. Yes, we go for 50 million euros for company A and 200 million euros for company B. But anyhow, we still need to prepare that, as we need to be ready. Once we say, yes, now here's the proof, then we need to push the button and say, okay, now we are going to trigger all the next steps, procurement, deployment, the ramp up for then the full deployment and whatever is then necessary, including having something like a deployment management entity, which has the overview about everything and can steer and somehow govern this procedure all over Europe. On the next slide, you see, as already mentioned, in the middle, in the heart, it's the migration roadmap or the migration plan to be developed, and there is the fleet analysis. Everything is somehow depending on the existing fleet, because if it would be only a green field, well, not a problem. We would be ready, I say, in 2 years, and we could say, let's go for it. But the challenge is that we don't have a green field here, of course. We have existing wagons and locos. So we need to better analyze, and we already called for that something like, I think, 2 years ago on the permanent basis, always asking the same question. Still, we have not enough data on the table. We need to have a better picture regarding what is necessary to be done in terms of making those wagons and locos ready to be retrofitted. And of course, how many of them are simply not in the position to be retrofitted, as there will be a certain number of vehicles. We need to understand this. This needs to be dealt with, and we need to find solutions for that. And based on this, we need to have a clear understanding regarding the engineering needs, so what needs to be done on these vehicles, and of course, then about the general retrofitting plan, workshops, workforce, components, how many do we have, how many can be produced, and then also then the concrete and detailed retrofitting plan in terms of where and when this can be done. We need to take care of the infrastructural and IT adaptations, as already mentioned. And of course, it's people still working with that technology, and that's a fundamental change. So we need to start thinking about how we can then deal with that, with the issues of workforce, of training, changing rule book, safety, etc. So we do not forget that, of course, but we start working with the most priority issues, and that's more or less the fleet analysis right now and engineering needs. And in parallel, funding, financing instruments, CBA updates, etc., etc. So you see, it's so many different fields. It's not a new slide. It's a slide we've been showing, I think, for quite a long time already. But it's still valid, as it shows that there are so many different areas we need to cover, more than only developing this technology and getting it done in terms of testing and demonstration, which is on the left side within the Flagship Project 5, as already mentioned. On the next slide, the state of play, very briefly, not that much time left, but close to finish. Within the European DAC Delivery Programme, 2 years ago, there was the coupler head type selection. As you may remember, we developed already some migration scenarios, which are now the basis for developing the migration plan. We have the first maybe 1 or 2 rounds of the cost-benefit analysis. Is it enough? No, further iterations needed, of course. The first, let's say, concepts regarding the European investment plan still subject to be further discussed, especially when it comes to the deployment management entity. There is the basic package definition, which has been agreed so far. I think that's also a very fundamental milestone, as this gives a more focused, let's say, framework right now for the upcoming works of the upcoming 3 years. And the next major step will be, as already mentioned, the analysis of the vehicle fleet to be done ASAP, very challenging as it is stated here on this slide. Within the flagship project 5, starting from the target operational procedures, of course, the ongoing technology development, the demonstration plan and the testing plan. There are, by the way, other DAC testing facilities and platforms, projects we can use, and we have to mention DAC4U as being very, very valuable to what has been done so far. We should not forget that. So that's a different project. Still, it's helping us. And there are so many different initiatives at the end. We cannot name them on one slide. It's important that we see this all together as being a general initiative and not only a project from this or that perspective. And of course, the system pillar as being something like a central instance, especially in the past right now as or ongoing procedure for the operational procedures harmonization and the further standardization plan. So the main next steps on the next slide within the flagship project 5 will be to go on and push and really speed up in terms of developing right now the technology as agreed based on the basic package, including, of course, the demonstration. We need to be ready technological wise for the pre-deployment trains. So that's now the main target at the end of 26 to be ready, saying, okay, right now, this is it. This is the basic package for the pre-deployment trains that they can then showcase and prove that this technology is functioning, is simply bringing all the benefits as expected and performing in a way as expected, especially when it comes to reliability, safety, etc. Within EDTP, we now need to push for organizing these 100 pre-deployment trains. So we will call, and we already did that, but we will once again call together with the associations, call for interests, and hopefully together with support of Commission here in this context. But I think this is subject to be discussed with Giorgio and you in the upcoming days. But we need to find volunteers or partners who say in principle, yes, we are in, we want to be partner in this pre-deployment phase, as we need something like 100, maybe 70, 80, whatever, but more than 5 or 10 trains operating in Europe. And of course, there are a lot of open questions still, but we already drafted something like a principal paper saying why we need it and how this needs to be done and how this could be done. And of course, what still is missing and what we need as different supports from different sides. Anyhow, then the migration roadmap, there we need to see the next milestone coming soon. Options for funding, financing, I would even call it, let's say, the first ideas of instruments. Of course, that's a never-ending story that we always say we need money, money, money. So we know money is limited, of course, as is always. Is it European money coming from there or that? Well, at the end, it doesn't matter. We need to find a way. Either we, as not only companies or operators or railways, we as a society somehow want to invest into that or not. So this will be mainly a decision made by member states directly or indirectly through the council, I guess. And this is why this makes so much sense, as he already mentioned it a couple of minutes ago, that of course we further deal with these issues in the state representatives group or even with the ministries directly, whatever is the most appropriate way to do so. And of course, the stakeholder dialogue. This sounds like, okay, lobbying work. It's not. It's listening. Mainly, we are listening, we understand the concerns, we share these concerns. We have been to so many different areas all over Europe. So I'd say there is, in the last, let's say, 12 months, nothing new raised anymore. So we heard all of it already at a certain occasion. So we know all about the concerns, we share them in many cases. And most importantly, we are working on them. So these concerns, as already mentioned in the second or third slide regarding the preconditions, these concerns are the framework of our work program. This is why we fight for, why we work for. So we need to find solutions. We need to overcome them. And this is what we believe is possible. This is where we put our energy and contributions and resources in. We invest into that. This is why we're keen to learn once we have made the next milestone, if we stepwise then can increase the acceptance by those stakeholders which might not be that much in favor at the moment. We listen to them and we believe we can convince them as, once again, we are on the same side here. And regarding the system pillar, operational procedure standardization, TSI input plan, you all know about that. So that's things that happened there. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I should leave the last slides to Javier, or Javier, if you allow me that I will finish then this presentation. Maybe that's the easiest way. On the next slide, you see, once again, please, if someone is interested and not yet partner of this initiative, it's easy. So you need to become a partner within this DAC delivery program. There you can see it, how this is going to work. So there is an application form, and there may be some 100 reasons why the DAC may not be successful. And of course, as already mentioned, we're working on that. But there's one major and imperative reason why we need to do it. We need to get this transformation done. We cannot go on as we did in the past, in the last 148 or 184 years or whatever. We need to improve it. We need to improve the system in a significant manner. And the DAC is a key enabler for getting this transformation done. So unless there are other ideas how we can transform this and how we at the end can survive, I'd like to encourage everyone to be partner of this and to solve this together and to get it done. Thank you so much. And if there is any questions, of course, right now, and if not, bilaterally, always. Thanks.
Many thanks, Mark. And I would second your invitation to everybody to get involved and work with us to deliver this, because this really is the only way we're going to ensure a good future for certainly the single wagon freight system in Europe. Though I do have to slightly soften what I say by the fact that the Commission, unfortunately, hasn't got all the money you would like to help support this, but we will do our best. So are there questions for Mark and the team on this? I know many of you are already involved, but for those who aren't, now is your chance. Yes, please.
Sorry, it's getting a bit boring that I'm once again asking. Mark, I would like to ask you a very practical question, because you are searching the partners who could operate the trains, but let's say without the authorization, let's say in this test mode, how you will proceed this? This is something what might be really very important for all the partners that could be interested in. Many thanks.
Yeah. Well, I cannot answer this for all the countries and all the different regions, but I can answer it for, let's say, from our company perspective. It's not the first time that we demonstrated test innovation. So we did it for a couple of different things. And of course, it's not standard procedure, but we have been operating quite in an intense meta innovation for sometimes even 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 years. So it's possible, but we need to find a way how. It's pretty much depending on, let's say, your national NSA or whatever. Of course, ERA could help to a certain part, but not as this is not regulated in a general European manner. I feel we need to deal with the local or regional NSAs. But it's possible. At least I know for a lot of countries where we know how this can be done. It's not easy, and of course you need to take a little bit of responsibility with your own stuff. But well, we did it for other things as well. And we shouldn't forget that there is already demonstration outside happening under specific conditions. And you always have the chance to, if you're not 100% sure that this is maybe in line with your, let's say, safety level you need to achieve, you can always, when it comes to demonstrating something or when it comes to operate something on a, let's say, pre-deployment phase, you can put some additional measures. This is what we do normally. Then you prove that the operation conditions are met, but still you can have an additional supervision, etc. And this is then still coming to the same safety level as necessary. At least this is how we do it. But I mean, of course, this is we can share our experiences in this context, and I'm more than open to discuss this with the respective potential partners to share how we did this in the past and how this can be done.
Thanks, Mark. I mean, from the ERA perspective, they just had to go, but they have been looking at it But as Mark says, most of this is national authorization. So we will help at the European level if we can. But I think your first point of contact is the NSAs.
May I add something on this? Sorry, Keir, may I add something on this? Because it's very important. One thing we should not forget about this year is it's pretty much a chicken and egg situation we're having here. And sometimes, from my perspective, it's not chicken egg, by the way. But we cannot expect that we develop a technology and that at the end we discuss it, let's say some PowerPoint presentations, laboratory tests, and then we put it into TSI and then we test it. This is something I'm not in. Because this is exactly going in the wrong direction. Because then we have the learning curve once we have procured a lot of technology where we have invested billions and I cannot correct it anymore. So I go the other way because the other way is the, let's say, more reasonable one, I guess.
Indeed. Are there other questions for Mark? Anybody online?
No, there is a comment online, and I think it's completely valid, not to underestimate the IT cybersecurity part of the DAC.
Yes, correct. Was that a question?
That was a comment, I think,
yeah,
but
okay.
you agree with it.
Yes, of course. Yes, we should not underestimate this. 100%.
Great. Well, I see no further comments here, but it's a very important issue that, of course, everybody who's not involved are very much invited to become involved, and the work will continue to evolve. In particular, we have a lot of difficult questions surrounding financing to address. But I think with that, many thanks, Mark and the team, for that presentation.
Yeah, I have to admit that once again, I regret not being with you, and Jens, by the way, wanted to come as well. He also did not make it. So once again, greetings from Jens as well. Jens Engelmann, also being the project manager, co-project manager here. Next time we will be there in person, hopefully. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mark. So I think that does bring us pretty much to the end of today, which is just as well because we're over time and the dinner starts in 19 minutes time, according to my calendar. But many thanks to all our contributors this afternoon. Many thanks for the questions. It's been a pretty dense session, but nonetheless, I think you have seen that there is clearly a lot of work going on, in particular to generate synergies between our work program and that of various other allied programs, which is very important in terms of leveraging the work we do and getting the best technology rapidly into innovation. Of course, the shift to rail legacy is now largely being finalized. I think tomorrow you will see more of the concrete technologies, both from Shift to Rail and Europe's Rail, which will, I hope, be enlightening for you, and enlightening also for those of you who are already deeply involved in the projects, because I hope you'll take advantage of the opportunity to see what other parts of the programme are doing, and of course, therefore, to ensure that there are no gaps or read acrosses that you hadn't spotted. I mean, let's use the opportunity to really ensure that the programme is gelling as a whole. I think that's very important. Thanks, Miroslav, of course, also for the work on the State Representatives Group. It's important that we find the most appropriate way to keep the member states involved with our work and aligned with it. I mean, it's not always an easy process, and of course, the expectations of different parts of Europe do vary, but in the end, we are trying to develop the technologies for a common system. So it's also important that we bear that in mind. Thank you to the JU team, of course, particularly to Giorgio for his presentations today and their work in getting together all of the activities of this afternoon. So I think with that, I will close. I won't be with you tomorrow morning, or certainly not the beginning of tomorrow morning, because I have to present the DAC to the freight CEOs at the UIC CER event tomorrow morning. So I won't be here, but it's for a good reason. But some of my team will be. I think Michaela will be here some of the time, and Vavka online. So DG Move will be having a watch, but I think it's very much your show tomorrow and your chance to get pretty much hands-on with the technologies, which is what I would have liked to have been doing more of this afternoon. But of course, we do have to present all the general work as well. So I'll stop there. I think you have the details of tonight, but I'll pass the floor to Giorgio just to repeat them.
Yes, I think thank you very much, Kier. Just for all of you that are here in Brussels, we're going to have our dinner, governing board dinner at 6, starting at 6. We will be a little bit late, I guess. It's in the Hotel Bristol Stephanie, so we can also walk there if it's not raining too much. Otherwise, there is the tram as well. Thank you very much again for all of you. Thank you very much for all the attendants online. And tomorrow we start at 9. Thank you.